Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April meeting of the Public Safety of the Rutherford County Commission. Good to see each and every one of you here this evening. In fact, we have a lot of new faces here this evening, and if I call on someone and call the wrong name, I ask that you forgive me. I don't have a scorecard this evening on who all is here, but we are glad to have so many here. If you are a visitor, we welcome you. We're glad to have you here for this important meeting. We are doing a lot of work this evening dealing with budgets as far as the different departments are concerned. Item number 2 deals with consent agendas. Before we do that, though, we're going to ask for approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed the minutes and make a motion that they be approved as submitted.
We have a motion. We have a second here. Commissioner Shanto. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is approved. Before we get into that consent agenda, I want you to go down to number 9 if we could. That deals with rescheduling the next meeting. Our next meeting falls on Memorial Day, and it's showing you there are 2 different dates available, May 20th and May 29th. Between the time that we sent out this agenda, May 20th is no longer available. So our choice is May 29th. So we'll just schedule May 29th as our next meeting. It also gives us some extra time. I think it also gives us more time. I think Commissioner Gurley has told us that we're needing that in our communications discussion and some of the things we're dealing there. So that will help us out some there too. So if that's okay with everyone, we'll schedule that for May 29th for our May meeting. And we'll just take care of that item right now. We have a consent agenda showing our OSHA report, ambulance service report, fire and rescue report, probation report, and recovery court report. You've all had an opportunity to look at those reports. Ambulance service and fire and rescue each have an amendment in them, but what we'll do is go ahead and approve those reports, and then those amendments we will take separately to discuss those amendments.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda minus the 2 budget amendments as submitted.
That's a proper motion. Do we have a second? Second. It's Steve Irwin, Commissioner Steve Irwin. Second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I'm going to go ahead with that amendment right now. The ambulance service.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We'll make this short and sweet, hopefully. We received two separate donations, a $500 check from Walmart and a $250 check from SRM Concrete for our EMS Week donations. We're requesting to move those into our $499 DNTNS line item, and that is strictly a donations line item. It has no taxpayer bearing on it at all. We're just requesting to move that $750 into that account. The second one, we're requesting to move $19,000 from our 708 communication equipment into our data processing equipment 709. We have a surplus in 708 because we received some radios that we were going to buy. We received a surplus, I believe, from the Sheriff's Department, and we need to purchase some new tough pads for our CAD system in the ambulances.
Any discussion on this amendment? Hear a motion?
Move to approve the request, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made. Second. Commissioner Gammon. All those in favor? We have to take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
You did make that short and sweet.
We tried. You need a copy of this? I don't think it's important.
All right, Chief Farley. Pressure's on.
I have a budget amendment tonight to move $7,468 into evaluation and testing from 338 maintenance and vehicle repairs. And I have adjustment of $2,500 out of .99 into maintenance and repairs of small equipment, or repaired equipment.
Increase in evaluation and training is to cover what?
Training, that's their training.
Why is there, is this addition to what you had planned?
We had, yeah, well, we had a online training thing that we had a contract with, and this last year we have a contract. We're going to pay that off and cover that. That way we won't incur that next year.
Further discussion?
Move to approve.
Commissioner Gurley? Commissioner P. seconds. Call the roll.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
And one more item, me and Mayor Captain met with the board of directors of Fossville Fire Department, and they have decided they want to come aboard the county. So that will be acquiring that station and those personnel.
Effective May 1st.
Effective May 1st. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, you see on your agenda, there's a presentation on pretrial court. Judge, glad to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
I think before we start this has all been through some effort and hard work by one of the members of our committee here, Commissioner P. And Commissioner P., I'd just like you just to introduce this to begin with and explain it. You know, we're very fortunate on this committee right here. We have a lot of good commissioners that go out here and do a lot of extra work. I know Commissioner Gurley spent hours working on her communications. Others have done this. Commissioner P's been on this for, I guess, since the last election. And I want you to go ahead and explain this, Commissioner.
Well, it started one day when I was listening to the radio station that was talking about people that are in jail incarcerated because they can't afford bail. And the story was about the bail project. If anybody got any question about why I got interested in this, you can go online and look up the bail project. But to make a long story short, we're incarcerating people that cannot afford bail. And to me, that's why I'm bringing it here. That's the main reason. There's a lot of reasons I'm bringing this here, and you'll hear those before we're through. And much to my surprise, after talking to one of the local judges that I know, I found out that Lisa had already been working on this. And actually her idea was a lot better than mine. And I also found out that Davidson County is also doing this same type of work. And what it's doing, it's reducing our number of inmates in the jail system that we feel would be not as much of a threat to society. And basically, you're not talking to a bleeding heart here. If you do the crime, I'm ready for you to do the time. However, the people I'm talking about have not been convicted. They're basically on pretrial diversion, I believe is the right word. And I was kind of astounded when I heard the numbers. I was talking to a sheriff, and I asked him, well, we've got about 900 prisoners per day. It's kind of an average. The day I talked to him, we were right at 900. And I asked him, well, how many people are in jail that are awaiting trial? That's basically, that hadn't been able to get out on bail, and because they couldn't afford it. Well, I was astounded to find out that was around 400 people. Well, you start doing a little math, it doesn't take long to add up at $38 a day. I think that's going right per head right now. Sheriff, you can correct
No,
me.
it's more 55 to 63, depending on the cost, $55, $58 right now.
All right, so I'm under about $20 a head. But the figures that I've worked on, if we were able to reduce our population out there by even 50 at $38 a head, $57,000 in 1 month for 50 people out at 38. Now, it's, my figures are off. I'm going to use my figures because I happen to know them. I mean, if you looked at the 400, if all 400 didn't have to be in the jail in a year's time, you're looking at about $5 million. There is a lot of money here. Now, that's not to say that some of these people need to be in jail and they need to stay in jail. But they've got a system that they've worked on, and our judge is going to explain that to you, where we feel, or I feel, that it would be the right thing to do as far as releasing these people. And I'm going to let her cover, how and the whys, but here's the main point is these people are eligible for bail. And bail was set up not to put people in jail, but to ensure that they show up on their court date. That's what it's all about. All right, now, what this project that I saw originally did is they got funds and they bailed people out, and then they caught them. They found out that most people didn't show up because they forgot or they were given the wrong date. So they had somebody call, and they found like 99.6% of the people that got their bail and got out on their bail always showed up, so they got their money back. But we're talking about something a little bit different, like they do in Davidson County, which we know is legal, because they've been doing this for a number of years.
20 years.
20 years now. And I'm astounded, we're just now really finding out about it, but the judges have really, and I want to brag on all of them, the judges have worked hard on this. They've looked at it, and they're not the type of people that are going to release people into our society that don't need to be released. If there's bail out there being offered to somebody, there's a reason for it. If there's not, there's a reason for that too. But I'm going to let her go ahead and take it from there. We can come back.
Well, when I was elected, I was out at the jail, and it was my task at that time to look into the pretrial release program. Deputy Mayor Jeff Davidson had researched it, and he found Ohio Risk Assessment System, which I've given you guys, the questionnaire. So what we did to start looking at whether it would be feasible, all the judges met with the DA, the public defender. We would meet once a month or once every quarter or something like that, the sheriff, and all the chiefs of the law enforcement in Rutherford County. And we limited and so does Davidson County, we limited the crimes that would be subject to this, okay? So pretrial we'll have counselors that will, if it's say it's a theft under $1,000, that's a misdemeanor. We have a lot of those. Theft under $1,000, you qualify for pretrial because that's one of the crimes that is to be considered for pretrial. They would. What we've been doing is our judicial commissioners have been going through this questionnaire. They all took the class. We had the counselors down here to train every one of them. But we thought that would work, but the problem was the turnaround time of the police officer. Because while my commissioners are questioning all these questions, and that's what I gave you guys, we get these every day because they're still doing it. Although we haven't released anybody on a pre-trial, we've done some ROR bonds, okay, for first-time offenders, but we haven't done pre-trial. We haven't put it into place because we didn't have the counselors, okay? And the counselors are the ones that actually will sit down, meet with the inmate or the defendant. Okay, let me see. How old are you? Is this your first time you've ever been arrested? Do you have a stable house? Do you have? And they go through this system and they rate them, and it's a rating of 1 to 7. And number ones, if it's a 1 right now, we've been RORing them. That means that they are a very low risk. They are your first-time offenders. You'll probably never see them there again. It's a lot of first-time DUI offenders are the low risk. They always come to court, and our release on that. So we've been doing it, but when you get to the 3 and 4, which are still okay, we don't have the people to actually meet with them, talk to them about why they ranked 3 and 4, further investigate whether they do have, because they look into their employment, they do an NCIC check, And then what they'll do is, if it's determined that they're going to be released, they will contact them. They'll say, hey, you've got court on this day. That's their job. You got court on this day. You got to be there. You got to, and make sure. And the judges have talked about it. And there's a lot of pretrial programs that we want to get them into. So if it's a theft under $1,000, there's a responsible living class offered by Rutherford County Probation. Go take that class, okay? And then what that would do is, if they take it before they go to court, they've met their condition of supervised probation, and they're just going to be a productive citizen, hopefully again. That takes the load off probation, because otherwise they'd have to say, did you take the class? If it's, we're thinking if it's a simple possession of marijuana, okay, you need to pass 2 drug screens and bring them to the judge. And somehow when they know they got to come back and see us, they're more apt to do it, but we're getting them pre-trial too, okay? So there's a list of crimes that our district attorney has agreed they can be released subject to pre-trial. That's not your murders, that's not your rapists, that's not anything like that, any C felony and above, even some D felonies. But it's the ones that we have keep coming into the jail, and it could be, I've had a public intoxication that was in on a Friday, and maybe a holiday Monday and Tuesday I see him in court, and he's been there 4 days because he couldn't make a $50 bail. And it's a low offender, and normally that's your homeless community, really. It's the people that can't afford. But when we did this risk assessment and we met with the people at the Ohio State, it was Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati, I think, came down. One day that one person spends in jail, that already changes their psychic. So the thing is, don't try to keep them out behind the bars. Don't put them behind the bars, because in 24-hour period, their whole mentality changes. And so they've looked into this. We're ready for it. We just don't have the counselors. We don't have the people that are going to sit down and talk to them. Because the commissioners, all the law enforcement, it takes 30 to 45 minutes to evaluate. And while my commissioners are evaluating, the police officer's off the street. And he's got to wait because he can't bring them into the jail till they're done. So we figured out that we have to have the counselors to make this piece of the puzzle work. And I don't know how many people y'all get in a day that come through there. There's a lot.
It's about 60 that he's being booked in.
And, we're going to coordinate it. We're asking to have 3 counselors at this time to see how it works, coordinate it to the high points of when the high traffic area is at the jail, and cover those areas and see how successful we are. But we've trained every one of the commissioners already on the NCIC. They're all certified. They had to take tests to do this. So we run the NCIC on these people. And then they, the counselor would go through it with them. We would have, I know the general session judges have discussed certain crimes, doing certain pretrial conditions, but it's just a way to make them actually see if they can be lawful citizens. And I've had some circuit judges tell me, they're sitting in jail and they're being bound over up to circuit, and they still haven't been able to make bond. And so when they get their cases up there, they don't know if they're going to be lawful or not, because they've never stepped out of jail on the charge they had. And it's not, I'm not talking real high felonies. These are some low felonies. These are some people, but for not being able to make bond, or some of them have made bond, okay, and they miss their court date when a bondsman bonds them out. And so then they have a failure to appear, and then we pick them up and hold them because they didn't get their court date. And so it could be because they had a lawful bondsman, or for whatever reason they missed their court date. But that's another thing that we would stress, that these pretrial counselors make sure they make it to court. And so it's Davidson County's done it for 20 years. Davidson County just revamped their system, and I met with their general sessions judge who was in charge of that. He sent me their information on the crimes that they're allowing. No domestic violence crimes would be allowed pre-trial release. No second offense DUI, third offense, fourth offense. First offense, yes. If you notice, or if you're ever in the court system, usually they're one and dones. It's a DUI. It's somebody who's young, does it, and then they'll never break the law again. And so we've kind of looked at their crimes that they're allowing pretrial for, and they've been highly successful because their jail is not overcrowded at all. I mean, I know that they, but it's a different way of thinking. It is not, just like Commissioner P said, bond is not a punishment. It is, I mean, bond is a punishment. So we look first at ROR. That's what the law tells us to do. Second, to look at reasonable assurances they'll appear in court. And third, look at your surety part. See if they need a bondsman to be there. So that's what we're supposed to do by the code, the Tennessee Code. And anytime I have a bond hearing, I have to go through it and look at these rules and determine if the criteria is met with reducing the bond, striking the bond. And we're also, when our jail courts, when we see somebody in there and we catch them and it's they miss the, because of the lawsuit with the PCC, probation, if they violation of probation, they miss their court date, it's automatic hold without, okay? And that's just because the federal court said that's what we have to do, so we can't afford them a bond. But when we see them that morning, we can ROR them and say, why'd you miss your court date? Talk to them and get them out of there too. So we're stopping that because every day we're having a jail docket. But this is before the jail docket. This is when they come into the jail. Get them out as soon as possible. If they're not a threat to our community, if they're not going to harm anybody, whether you pay a monetary bond or not, if they have the $1,000 to bond out on a $10,000 bond, and then the same person, $10,000 bond doesn't have that money, he sits in jail, or she, as we'd see more women in there. So it's a good tool to start in our community. I don't know why we didn't do it when Davidson County, but Davidson, I don't know. I just know I went up there and I toured their facility and how they do it, and it's a good program. And it's not releasing, it's not like these people are charged with a crime, it's just pre-trial risk assessing the risk to our community, assessing the risk of putting them out there pre-trial, giving them some things to work on, so when they come before us, if they really don't want to be in jail, show me what you're doing, and it gets them out of the jail quickly. So our commissioners would say, okay, you're charged with a theft under $1,000. That's going to be a $1,000 bond. But you may also qualify for pretrial release. This is the scenario it would go. So then they go, well, okay, let me go meet with the pretrial counselor. So they book them in, the counselor call them over, go through the questionnaire, do an NCIC, and if that counselor feels like they qualify, the commissioner would change the bond to a pretrial release ROR, subject to whatever bond conditions we say. It's new, and I know there's a group of people that are going to hate this, and that's your bondsman. So that they are not going to like it, and not going to like me. So for bringing this up, but I was tasked with this. Mayor Burgess asked me to look into it, and we got everything ready, but we never had the final step of the counselors.
With the somebody else speak just now?
No.
I'm sorry.
You're first.
With the number of people being booked in, when you're talking about this, the people you talked about wouldn't qualify. They wouldn't be counted. They'd be just the ones that would be under certain charges.
Right. Yeah.
On top of that.
So we've got a whole list of, and I should have printed that out, of the charges that qualify, okay? And then the charges that don't qualify, immediately if it's a domestic violence situation, they don't qualify. They get a 12-hour hold. Immediately if it's any type of a murder, homicide,
Right.
any type of really just a high felonies. They're just not even part of it. So it's the ones, like our commissioners immediately, they'll know the list. And there's so many small, so I saw somebody in jail that had altered tags and didn't make a bond because he had the wrong tag, and they don't understand, but that's an arrestable offense. And so that's somebody that, okay, probably altered tag, didn't have the money for his tag, and now he can't get out of jail, and we're $60 a day, he's sitting in there. So there's a lot of crimes that do, that would qualify, and it's another tool to make them start doing some things. I think if we get it rolling and get this going every month it goes, we're going to be able to get these people off our supervised probation and have them do it, which then would allow my probation officers to really do their job and help these addicted people that they don't have time to, because they got so many people on their caseload. Help that, there's so many things they want to do, but they've got so many people unsupervised. And this way, a lot of the conditions that the district attorneys would like to impose would be met. And then we'd say, okay, you passed 2 drug screens, you plead guilty.
So the counselors would be on site then?
They would be at the jail. And I think that they found a place over there where to put them. And we do one a shift, so we just one at the HOTS. We'd have to really figure out where it is, and they want these counselors to be under the direction of the general sessions judges, and that's fine with us. Judge Bennett, Judge McFarland, we're all on board with it.
What's the number of?
I would say, for example, today we have 619 pretrial inmates. If you could just get a success rate of 10 to 20% being sent off on this program, that would be a big hit to our population and save a lot of money. But also, you got to think about the future. It also prolongs us having to build a new building in the near future. So we got to think about that. We do have the room for the pretrial counselors, and I think that from the presentation that Davidson County's gone over with us, they showed up to court just as much as the other ones did with bonds. So there's not any lower failure rate of showing up for court. So it's just as successful.
Commissioner Urban?
Yeah. Have you checked with Nashville to find out what their failure to appear rate is on the pretrial release?
He did. He just, when I went up there, they didn't have it, but they said it's about equal to the bonds. And I've noticed that just on, you would be surprised how many people that pay a bond don't show up to court and pay a big bond. And then they'll bring them in. It'll be 3 weeks later. Well, we were told the wrong court date, and so they said there's no difference. They said you really can't find a market difference in the bonding and a pretrial. And you got to think pretrial. Some of those people, they're going to go to court and they want to get it done. They want to get it behind them. They're the people that would probably be ROR.
And these are going to be low-level risk, so most of them have stable jobs in the community. They want this to get behind them, this charge. So.
And that's what this questionnaire is. We had our OIT, they put this into a computer program, and so they just go through it, and that's how you determine is where do you live, how long have you lived there, do you own your home, how long have you worked at your employment, have you ever been arrested before, explain, do you have a drug use problem, what's your problem, and if they lie, then that marks, we can check, have you ever been arrested? If they lie about it, they're doing the NCIC check on them. That doesn't help them.
Commissioner?
For Mayor Ketchum, this started before you were sworn in with Mayor Burgess.
Yes.
Are you up to speed?
Well, I definitely am. Before I actually took office, I'd met with Deputy Mayor Davidson, and of course I've had several conversations with Chairman P about this. I know they've had a couple of meetings. I had one just last week. They actually wanted 6 counselors. I think that we can probably start out with a pilot of 3. Ms. Nolan has the numbers on that. We can go ahead and implement this before we get into the next year's budget. She can come forward and give you those numbers. I think we've got enough money in the budget to go ahead and do that. But I compliment former Deputy Mayor Jeff Davidson and of course Chairman P. If you were able to maximize everything times that 400 times $60 a day, then that's 8.7. So just scale it back for loose numbers of $4 million. That's real dollars that we can save. And of course, I know the sheriff was bumping up against wanting a new building. If we don't do something, he's got to have some relief. And so I see this as a win-win. Of us saving dollars as well as not getting into a new building expansion, because I don't know where we're going to put that. We have to build it on stilts because all the property you got is in a flood zone, right?
The budget amendment from General Sessions. Let me just read that to you that we have here, because you do not have a copy of it.
I got a copy.
But it's General Sessions Judge, here you are. General Sessions Judge requested 3 additional positions to assist judicial commissioners in conducting pretrial assessments after individuals have been moved into the jail. The goal of the assessment is to determine the risk of allowing these individuals to be released on their own recognizance. The new positions will also allow up with the individuals reminding them of their court dates. The amendment above provides sufficient funds to pay the salaries and benefits from May 20th, 2019 to the rest of the fiscal year for these 3 positions. There should be enough funds remaining in the existing budget to cover health insurance for 1 month of coverage for 3 people. The request increased is $13,640. Is that
In total.
total? Anything else, Lisa?
You got it.
Okay.
Your recommendation, Mr. Mayor?
No, I'm all behind this. I think it's a great idea.
It's actually a program, if y'all been listening to Governor Lee, he's trying to get.
He is.
He's pushing this, and I met with Supreme Court, our Chief Justice Bivens and Ms. Tate, the head of the AOC, and at our judicial conference, and told them how close we were. And so they're very excited, because this is the new push. This is what the governor wants. This is what our Supreme Court justices want. And I said they'll look for money, so I'm still making them look for that money right now. But they were very excited. No, we were so far along with it when I told them exactly how far along we were with this.
I think Commissioner P had something.
You know, I said there were several reasons that they can cover them all, and I'd like to put them out there because there's a lot of people who spend a lot of time looking at this and put a lot of thought into it. You know, I told you when I started that I want to do it because it's the right thing to do, not because it's going to save us a ton of money, and I believe it will. But we've got people that have not been convicted of a crime that are sitting in jail, and what's the first thing that happens? They're going to lose their job, and then you and I are supporting them. You know, they're not able to support their family. They need to be out. And basically, what the judges have told me is, you know, say you even got an innocent person in jail. After they've been sitting in that jail about 90 days, they'll plead guilty to get out. And they'll have that around their neck for the rest of their lives. And that's not right. I mean, and yes, those are the minority, I'm sure, but still, that happens. And I've seen from the statistics that I've read of the Bail Project that I first looked at, that's happening. You know, basically, these people already qualify for bail, they just can't afford it. But some of you that have been here a while, Jeff and Shanto and Mr. Gurley, we just went through a lawsuit on our probation. And guess what, guys? We're going to be sued if we don't do something about how we're handling this. I think that this project, if we do start doing it, will prevent us from being sued by this group of people. And this next time we get sued, it won't be a slap on the wrist. We basically got away scot-free last time, but I don't think that that'll happen again. And the other thing, and the mayor mentioned it, talk to our sheriff about his population and what the state is telling him is at capacity right now, and if he remains at capacity, they're going to be on our necks to be building a new jail, and you're talking, what, $80, $100 million. So, like I said, the final thing is there is money to be saved, but again, it's the right thing to do. And like I said, Lisa has got this set up where we can start off with 3 people, which should be the minimum that we need, and basically we'll tweak it as we go. You know, the judges will make that decision. Hey, is this working, along with the sheriff? You know, if it's working, well, maybe there's something we can do to make it better. You know, if it's not working, maybe we can pull it back too. But I think it's definitely, in my opinion, worth us looking at.
Sounds like a motion.
I was going to say, Commissioner,
I'll make that motion.
Second that.
Chairman, let me ask the judge a question. If the commission approves this, can we go in and make this retroactive? Can we go in and look at the ones ones that are already
You
incarcerated?
know, we talked about that, and we probably could. Actually, there's a lot of,
I mean, let's go ahead and start emptying the jail now.
yeah. We probably, there's probably some that have gone up to, because I know General Sessions, I know Judge Bennett and I, McFarland, are very good about letting them out if they don't need to be in there. And then the risky ones, we haven't been because we don't have anybody to watch them. So I don't want to be that judge. But if I have a pretrial counselor that I have, it'll be perfect. And the other thing that y'all probably don't know, but the state funded a judicial liaison, and she started last month. And what she does is our pretrials will work with her if it's approved, because she gets moms that are pregnant and addicted to opioids. We've got heroin users, male and female, and now she gets them immediately, and we try to get them out of the jail into a rehab so they're not sitting in our jail. So the state actually paid for that position, but it could work with this. It's a good change, and it's a wonderful thing for Rutherford County, I do believe.
I have a motion by Commissioner Pete. I have a second.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Gurley, seconds. Chanto, second.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a motion. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
I'd like
Commissioners,
to say something before discussion.
You may.
Last Wednesday, attended a session that was hosted by Belmont on judicial reform. It was former Attorney General Gonzalez hosted it. The governors of Tennessee and Kentucky were there discussing judicial reform. And the gist that I came away with is that a lot of the things we've done in the past 20 or so years have not worked, except for building population in prisons. We've got to, the emphasis, I take it from the state, is going to be locking up those people who need to be locked up long-term, but trying to help those who just need a little bit of help become better, productive citizens of this state. So I think this goes hand in hand, as Judge Eichhardt said, with what's going to be coming down in the next year or so from the state.
Thank you, sir. Call the roll.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes. I guess that's our Earth Day project today.
All right, yes, sir.
You sign that?
Is this me? It was correct.
Yeah, you're sign it as you're requesting.
Oh, okay.
Paul's report and budget. Paul's has already given us something quite colorful, if you'll look there in front of you.
Want me to go through the report, or did you just want to go straight to the budget, sir?
Give them an abbreviated report.
Abbreviated?
Yeah.
All right. The main things on the report that I would look at would be down at the bottom of the first page, we look at our adoption reclaim percentage and our euthanasia rate, still in the single digits there, and then the live release rate still over 90% overall for our animals in the shelters. So that's the highlight that I like to look at.
Okay. Everyone's already received this. Do I hear a motion to approve the report? Commissioner Steve Irwin, second. Commissioner, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Report has been approved. Now we'll go into your budget, sir.
Okay, so I gave you this thing that has the traffic light on there, kind of a green, red, and yellow. It's kind of some things that we've done this year. I won't go through all of it, but the things that are in this, you'll see reflected in our budget request. Things that we're doing well, things that we need to improve upon are the yellows, and things we're not doing so well are the reds that we need to work on. How would you like for me to go? I printed this out just because on the iPads it's so small. I thought it might be easier for you to read it that way. And how would you like to go through the line items, Chairman?
Let's go with changes, what you're seeing there.
All right. First is line 164. We're requesting 2 new ACO positions due to our call volume increase. You'll see over in the things that we're doing, as far as our officers, the last 2 years, we've seen almost a 19% increase in our call volume based on our population. So we're asking for that to put an additional officer on each shift. That will bring us to 6 officers on each shift. And part of the reason for that is also FMLAs, vacations, those type things. When you only have usually 4 trained officers on a shift, it really puts us in a hurt when somebody needs to be off, especially for an extended period of time through FMLA. We are also asking, our PR person currently does our volunteer program. Those duties have expanded rapidly to where it's encroaching significantly on her public relations part, and we're asking to have somebody come in there to formalize that volunteer program and to have some more structure there and to work specifically with our volunteers. Right now, we're averaging a little over 500 hours a month with our volunteers. I think that's low. I think that we need to have somebody that comes in that really promotes that program. We can see that increase significantly. That line item does also reflect, when we added the full-time kennel attendants back in January, it reflects the full year cost of those. And you'll see a decrease in line 169 that reflects that as well.
Before we leave that, if you had that chance to evaluate how that's going.
Well, we hired 3 eventually, finally, and one of those actually moved up took a promotion within our department. We're still trying to backfill that position. It is working better. However, we are still not fully staffed with that position.
That's an increase of somewhere around $150,000, give or take a few.
Yes, sir. We got a $40,000 increase on the part-time.
Okay.
Each one of those ACOs, by the time you add the cost of their salary and their benefits, you're looking a little over $55,000. So that's the majority of that cost.
What about your volunteers? Have you reached, how old do they have to be?
They have to be 18 to be there by themselves. They can be there under 18 as long as they're there with a parent or guardian.
Have you looked at possibly doing some kind of high school program? Like I had 3 students last year that went to veterinary school, and they were interested in that, and they actually were volunteer in Nashville.
We did some work with Smyrna High School 2 or 3 years ago, I guess. I can't think of the name of the program, but where they get high school credit, but they also get paid by us. Similar. They worked some in the afternoons and they worked on the weekends. We hired 3 folks initially. We were down to 1 person, I think, within the first month or 2 because it just wouldn't show up to work.
How about during the summer months?
During the summer months, we do have we have 1 college student that goes to school in Arkansas. She does come in and she works during the summer and during spring breaks and holidays and those type of things, but we haven't had any high schoolers during that. Our biggest concern is we might get them in high school, but then they go back at the beginning of August. That's still our busy season, so we just lost numerous employees all at one time, and we're scrambling on how will we maintain, August, September, and October, which is still some of our busiest months. We asked for a little bit of an increase in overtime pay, line 187. We've had to amend that for the last several years. Line 189, there's an increase there. There's no increase in positions, but that line item is what pays for our full-time veterinarians. We've had that 1 full-time veterinarian position posted for year and a half, I guess. Even when we had it part-time, we weren't getting any applicants. This takes and puts our current veterinarian, we worked with Sonia, that puts her where she should be, and it puts this other position where it should be as well, hoping that would get applicants for that position. If we go on down, all the benefit numbers, of course, are supplied by finance. We asked for some decreases in line 307, line 320. Line 334, there's an increase there. We're asking to be able to get our computer program, our software that we use is called Chameleon. We're constantly, you always have a supervisor who is on call. We're constantly being called, having to being asked questions by officers that are on scene or about animals that are in the shelter, what they need to do in the situation. This would allow management to be able to access that on their phone. decrease in building maintenance, going down, no increases for the rest of that front page. As for a nominal increase in line 410, which is custodial supplies, and then if you're going down, the next line that you see an increase is line 707. And I know that's quite a large number. Let me explain that. Our building is 15 years old this year. We had hail damage back in 2011, 2012 to our roof. And there was money that was given by insurance, but it wasn't fixed at that time. Almost 2 years ago, when Mayor Burgess was here, we had to have about $6,000+ worth of repairs to our roof. They indicated at that time that we were 2 years out, we were going to have to replace it based on the damage and based on the age of it. We're starting to get leaks again, so that a large part of that number there is for the new roof. The second part of that is...
Is that money that you had turned back into the general fund? You said you had money for that.
It never came to me. It never came to me. I know that there was money that was paid out, and it's been several years ago. Like I said, it was 2011, 2012. I can't remember the exact number that we were paid out. The other part of that is our HVAC system. When that was put in, and for those of you that were here, you may know better than me, it was put in incorrectly to start with, then it had to be redone, and now here we are 15 years later. We're starting to have some issues with that. We put quite a bit of money, but I know back at the end of last budget year, we put in a $10,000 repair. We've had several repairs already this year. That maintenance was out there again this morning. When we started initially having some of these repairs, Ben over at maintenance came in and he had done some work and some research of some other kennels. And basically, for our two largest dog areas, we have one large unit. It should have been designed to where there were two smaller units. And that would give you some overlap there. And then when one goes down, you've got some capacity to be able to try to take care of some other stuff. This would be able to come in and start the work of the redesign on that, and then start the replacement. My goal with this amount of money was to come in and take care of the two major dog areas and the employee area, and then we would push one of the smaller unit off another year or two, just because it wasn't used quite as much since it was in our storage area at one point before we did that future expansion build out.
The figures that you got, where did you get that? Have you bid this?
No, we have not bid any of it. I figured $55,000 for the roof, which was near where they gave me 2 years ago for the replacement. I put $135,000 for the HVAC. Ben had told me at one time that he thought we would be in the $100,000 range, and that's been a couple of years ago, so I increased that. And then the other money that we included in there was for possible parking lot additions. We only have one space to where we could expand our parking lot. We have, on the weekends and during our promotions and whatnot, we don't have any parking left. People are double parking and we can't get out. People can't get in either. So this would be to try to study to see if we can come up with some space that we currently have there on the property to put in some additional parking spaces. And I figured that at $25,000, but I think that's high. I think that we could probably do that for a little less.
I think you probably do that for about, what we pay for 319 parking study. $8,000
For the study?
Yeah.
I was hoping for the 25, we might could do the study and even maybe go ahead and get something down. I don't know how much asphalt costs.
Well, if you're only looking at one slide, what are you looking for? You got extra property?
No, we're only looking just for that one little piece where the dumpsters are currently. That's the only space that we have left.
Well, if it was me, I'd say tell them to park across the street at the Ag Center.
I think I suggested that too.
Can you not get signs made up saying additional parking?
We can park over there as long as the Ag Center would allow us to do that. My concern is the traffic on that road. There's a curve there that you can't see around, and we've walked over there for various events. I don't have an issue with it. I hate to see somebody get hurt. They're also have built that new apartment complex behind the Ag Center, and they're building a new complex right behind us now. So we're fixing to see that increase more.
So it picked up in traffic a lot.
Yeah. I wish we'd been able to purchase that property directly behind us, and that would have solved a lot of our space issues. Line 709, a little bit of an increase there. That's what we replace our laptops with every year, and also upgrading some of our security cameras. And then everything below that, our trucks, we've been on a replacement one every year, so that put us on a 10-year rotation. We've been in consultation with the mayor regarding doing the leasing of the vehicles, so that number is subject to change. And then other equipment is where we pay for the unit on the back of the truck, and there's $2,000 in that as well for ACO vests for the new officers that we've requested. And that number is subject to change as well based on the enterprise leasing program also. So I know that's a large number to look at the bottom.
Looks like a $500,000 increase, somewhere around that, but
Yes, sir.
140, 150 of it relates to positions that we've kind of already approved, and we're looking at the full year of that. And the other one is maintenance to the building, and how you can get around that. Those are issues that we want to stay in front of instead of behind on. And I remember us having some issues with that HVA system out there a couple of years back. That was a real issue, which was already bad. Mr. Mayor, have you looked at this budget? Mr. Mayor, have you looked at this budget?
I am. Matter of fact, Michael was very good about when he came forward with his budget. I had asked every department to bring me a wants budget and a needs budget. And he was the first one that actually came in and had two different budgets proposed. And, I'll still take it under advisement at this point. We've still got some tweaking to do. But he's presented a very decent budget this year. So I'll be prepared sometime around the 1st of May to come back to the full commission to make my presentation on all the different budgets.
Probably with some definite numbers on that roof and some of those things.
Those are things that have been around for a while. I mean,
Been hanging for a long
they're
time.
not going to go away.
I'm just
We
talking
need
about
to
just
deal with
get
them now.
what a real number would be.
Fortunately, last year, Ben has hired a gentleman who is certified on HVAC, and so he was able to, last October and end of September, I think, when that one unit went down, and he was able to get out there and repair it for, I was ready to authorize you buying a new one from Roscoe Brown, and he fixed it for pennies on the dollar.
He fixed it, I think, for $1,000, and they were wanting us to replace it, I think, at 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And since then, we've been
That was
using
my actual
just the-
first savings
Yes.
after I got sworn in, so I was happy about it.
And since then, we've stopped calling Roscoe Brown. Whenever we have an issue, we're calling Stephen with maintenance. He's doing an excellent job for us.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I can't tell you the work that they do out there and how they've been understaffed and continue to put the work out. And I'll make a motion that we forward this to budget with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that.
We have a second from Commissioner Garner. All those in favor? Aye.
Well, you need to call roll on this one.
Get them covered. Good. On a budget like this.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Emergency management.
Good evening, all.
Good evening, sir.
Would you like to do the report first?
Yes, sir.
All right, it's very basic across the board, nothing outstanding or unusual. We have been doing quite a bit of training. It seems like there are a lot of new employees in public safety that have to fill their federal requirements for incident command training, so we've been beefing up the incident command training across the board and getting a lot of that done. Also of note, I wanted to stress to you, I don't know if you've heard the news yet, but in a partnership with the Sheriff's Office and every public safety agency across the county, City of Laverne, Smyrna County, and the City of Murfreesboro, with fire, EMS, and law enforcement partners, we have attended a training session to train trainers for active aggressor scenarios. This initial training, we established a cadre of instructors from all the disciplines and all the jurisdictions to start training across the board. Last week we started our preliminary training session, our test training session, if you will. It went very well. We're going to continue with training and start next month, and we're looking at conducting 29 classes to train over 1,200 people across the county to respond effectively and cohesively, all with the same type of protocol and knowledge of how to respond to these types of events. And I'm very proud of how all these elements have come together in the county. It's the first time that anything like this has been done, and it's just great to see all these elements come together and work like they are. And I just appreciate everybody's hard work and efforts that they're putting into it.
Okay, sir. Any questions, gentlemen? If not, I accept a motion for approval of his report. Commissioner Irving, second.
Second.
Commissioner Sereno, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Report is approved.
Budget, pretty straightforward across the board. Sections in blue are administrative costs. Sections in red are increases from last year. Sections in green highlight are decreases in budget requirements from last year's budget. And the only thing that I've noticed this afternoon is just a dues membership for Mr. Cass that would no longer be needed. That's about $190 that we could take out of that. But
The budget for in-service training didn't change at all?
no, sir. No, sir. And I don't think it would. And of course, I don't know where we are with another person because we're down one now. But those requirements would pretty much be continued across the board.
So there's no training, the extra training that they need?
No, not at this juncture.
Okay.
The majority of our training, we're fortunate enough that we get at no cost. So.
Yeah, I just have to say a 26.7, 26.8% decrease in your budgeted request. Where does most of that money come from?
Some of it comes from services that are no longer required. There's also maintenance fees that have dropped across the board. Some of some communications equipment, you see a 71.78% drop. And Pete, can you discuss that piece where the drop in?
Some of that was project money that we'd already, that was part of the pre-existing upgrade. That and the maintenance contract for the radio system is now biannual, so.
Right, so since that, it's not required for this year, so.
And you will be bringing back the capital budget for the communication system?
Yes, sir, that's completely separate.
Separate.
Yes, sir.
Right, so overall, this is a very good budget.
I don't know what else to do, you know. I'm not going to sit here and try to ask him to spend more money, and not to cut off the discussion, but let's forward this to budget with a positive recommendation.
Have a motion, have a second? Second. Commissioner Gurley. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen's attention.
Hi, good evening. I have about 4 things to discuss tonight. So we'll start with our monthly report. On our March report, I can share that probably the most unusual thing on that is going to be that we had no OT sprays for the month of March, and our received money for March is also going to look unusual, but it's because we haven't received our the big payment from Sumner County yet, but we never have an issue with getting those checks, so that's not anything that I'm particularly worried about. STD report is nothing unusual there. I can tell you that next month on our facility programming, there will probably be a new additional pet partner group that's going to be coming in that we're excited about. And the remainder is, I don't know that there's anything unusual. At your convenience, you might want to take a look at our spring newsletter. There's some information there that we were pretty excited about our college fair that we had at the facility for the young people that were detained at that time. But above and beyond that, that is the report for March.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know you may not be able to talk about details of the juvenile that escaped, but do we have any criteria in place as to who we accept?
We are able to accept or not accept any of the agency's children that call and ask for a bed based on multiple criteria. It can be population-based. It can just be that they've had issues in the past that we're not interested in.
So this particular juvenile would not have met those criteria of not being interested?
What I can share is that, and y'all know that there are many confidentiality issues regarding the juveniles that we detain. So it's probably in our best interest just to say that we could have gotten more information from that contracting county that we didn't get. And one of the things that we have done is to add an additional question on our acceptance form to cover those situations in the future.
That's my concern, is having a policy in place so that we're getting good information from the county. I don't mind accepting juveniles into Rutherford County if they're not at risk for Rutherford County. But to me, it just doesn't make sense to accept real high-risk juveniles into Rutherford County when we don't have to.
Well, it's unfortunate that we weren't given all the information that you would expect to get from another government agency.
Right, and I realize that. So you're telling me that you made changes?
We have
in the
made
process.
Changes, and we had precautions in place. We've got that 12-foot fence in the back that has barbed wire and razor wire on it.
I don't want to get into how or anything like that.
But yes, but there have been some changes to our acceptance form.
Is it just verbal policy or is it written policy to your employees about, what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept?
It's written.
Your operating procedures.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions about the report? Your motion, we approve the report. Commissioner Irwin, have a second. Sereno, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I believe you have an amendment.
Well, do we want to do the amendment next or our MOU with the Board of Education?
Whichever you would wish to do.
Let's go with the MOU.
Okay.
All right, this is the same MOU that you've seen before. This will be coming up annually. It's with the Board of Education, and it's for basic education services for the young people that we detain. This became necessary based on some changes to minimum standards, and it's just to ensure that both departments know what's expected to make sure that those standards are met. And there's no changes to this MOU from the previous year's MOU.
Same one we've had.
Yes, sir.
We have to do this every year.
Yes, we will.
Have a motion to approve the MOU? Commissioner Gammon. Second, Commissioner Peake. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And now your budget amendment.
Now we have an amendment. I'm asking to move money from within our existing budget from two of our salary line items into overtime for a total of $20,000. We still have multiple open positions that we're not able to fill at this time. And so the employees that we have are having to pick up shifts, and obviously overtime is preferred to comp time so that they can, it's easier to, when you're down a couple positions, it's hard to get time off, so this way they're being compensated for their time.
The salaries are coming from those open positions, the salary request?
Yes.
Into overtime?
Yes.
Move to approve the request, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Gammon. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Peake?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
All right.
We're ready for your budget.
Okay, just hitting changes, of course, you're going to see some increases in some of our personnel line items based on the pay scale that we had available. There are no new full-time positions in this budget. I'm actually losing a full-time position and requesting a part-time position. So that's where you're going to see the majority of the savings in this particular budget. I'm not asking for anything additional in overtime. I'm hoping we can get these positions filled and not have to transfer money to our overtime next year. There's a slight increase in Social Security, which is part of the salary line item increases in Social Security, etc. Medicare, insurance, etc. has gone up slightly. Asking for more money in our cell phone line item. I have added 6 additional phones for our sergeants to help with our on-call. We have in the past used personal and private home numbers and cell phone numbers, and we're looking to change that this year. We've had a couple of issues with that. This is something that other departments are currently doing, so we're hoping that that will be approved. There's a slight increase to our data processing line item. That's just because our support fee went up just a little bit this year. Dues and memberships have gone up slightly. Line item 330 is new. This is a want. We currently have a very old, I think it's a 91 Savannah van that we're using for transport, and I'm hoping to get a new Ford Transit van or something similar approved. We have looked into the leasing purchases that other departments have spoken to you about. So the first year lease on that type of vehicle would be just under, or would be $7,400 for the lease for the year, or if the total cost on it would be a little more than $40,000. So that's not currently on my bottom line. That is a 1, and it's highlighted just so you can tell the difference.
Where do you transport juveniles to?
We regularly, almost daily, go to the emergency room with somebody. We also transport to doctor's appointments. The young people are handled a little bit different than adult inmates in that if it is a medical concern that can be handled with over-the-counter medicines, that's something that we handle with our current staff. If it's something that you would take your child to a doctor's appointment for, we set up doctor's appointments with the parents, and we transport them to those doctor's appointments because the parents are still financially responsible for the medical bills while the kids are detained, because they're not, their custody hasn't changed. They're still in the legal and financial custody of their parent. And then if we have to go to the emergency room for something that's urgent, obviously we're going there. So the majority of our transportation is going to be medical related. We do occasionally have to take young people detained at detention to the adult courts, so we transport there sometimes. The main concern that we've had multiple instances in the past where we have had to evacuate our facility, and if we currently have a Impala, which we could in theory get 3 people in the back seat of that Impala, and we have another van that is a 12-passenger van, and then we have that 91 Savannah. So getting our kids evacuated when necessary to one of our evacuation locations is my main concern, that we don't have to wait on someone else to show up with a transport vehicle so that we can evacuate.
Would you not call EMS if you're going to an ER?
If they would like to take over that service, I would happily give it to them.
Does the state have surplus options?
I looked for an entire year to try to find, and I talked to Rover to find one of their buses that they were going to take off the line. I talked to the Rutherford County for a newer bus, but I've been looking for some time, and I'm hoping that I've not been able to find anything. Is the short answer. Back to your question, the ambulance does come, but once they get them to the hospital, my staff has to follow so that we can bring them back to the facility. So we also have on line item 334, we have, I'd like to, well, this is a want. This is not a want, this is a need. We have a copier that is currently on its last legs. So the 334 is going to be going down just a little bit. It's going to have our 2 existing copiers in it, and then you'll see that I've referenced line item, and it is also highlighted 719, and hoping to get a new copier. And I'm guesstimating that at around $6,000 if we do purchases. Probably the only other thing that is different is going to be Rudd Medical has gone up, but that's per an existing contract that had already been agreed upon for, I believe it's our 3rd year in that contract. And gas has gone up slightly, and everything else either remained the same or went down. I'll be happy happy to try to answer any other questions that you may have.
That request for the additional vehicle, the additional van is not in the bottom line.
No, it's not.
Currently, the department request is less than last year's budget.
It is.
I don't know how to deal with the van. This falls under the mayor's supervision, and I'm going to pass the buck to him. I think we should forward this to the budget with a positive recommendation exclusive of the new vehicle. If the juvenile detention can convince the mayor that they need a new van, I think we'll probably support it at the full budget.
She gives a good argument. I mean, if we're in a situation, you got what, a 91? Is that what you said?
It's a 91. It is the, it was last, but prior to us using it, it was used for parades by the election commission. It used to be the voter bus that they would have in parades.
It's historical.
Is that the one Hooper used to drive around that bread trucks?
But yes, it does look sort of like that.
So it's got pretty low mileage.
It's got 225,000 plus.
She got it low mileage.
Well, we do have a motion here. Mr. Hills have a second down there, but Mr. Irwin. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Okay, typically we don't have a budget. We have
Well,
to. It's not a budget.
okay, no,
It's
you're
just-
right. You're right. I'm just, I'm still trying to figure out the vehicle. I would want to mention to you, you know, on the copier right there, you said rather to buy or lease. Copiers now, most of them are going so digital, you'll probably come out in the long run better to lease than buy it yourself. I don't know, but that's something to look at.
Mr. Chairman, I did look into that, and I was waiting and working with all the departments because the Department of Procurement at the state had put out the new bid for the state contract. I know I was holding the sheriff at bay because they needed one, and the state contract did come out just last week or week before last, I believe it went back to Canon. However, the machine that they were wanting is the new HP. And I did some research. I had Vicki pull it up, but somewhere back in 1998 or 2000, this commission chose not to allow leasing, and we went to purchasing. We were leasing prior to, but now here, some 20 years later, leasing, the arrangements on leasing are changed a lot. And the new machines are from my understanding of digging into this, these new digital machines, what was costing so much was the ink cartridges. And used to, they had the bubble jet, and they got away from that because the rubber would deteriorate and dry out. Well, now it's a sealed system on these ink cartridges as opposed to the dry toner. And so there's been a lot of changes in technology for the computers or for the copy machines, because they're actually computers. You can hook them up as a BizHub and actually print from your workstation. So I would like to, maybe at budget time, Mr. Chairman, relook at that proposal, or at least what the commission voted on back in 2000, whenever that was, about leasing, and see if it works out any cheaper than the purchase and save us on cash flow.
I think that's a good idea, Mayor. See, I come out of the corporate world, and I was responsible for a print shop. And we used to use presses. And when I walked in there, we had all these presses. And we used plate and ink and all of that situation. Saturn had come to Columbia, and Saturn brought digital printing. I ended up getting Saturn's digital printer and moved it into my print shop. And then I expanded into digital printing. And we were then printing books, we were printing everything all digital. But we found out by leasing compared to buying, we end up getting new equipment every year. And we found out that everybody that we dealt with when we leased, we got service contracts with them. Only we didn't have contracts, they just took care of their own equipment because it was their equipment, all we did was pay a lease. And for them, it cost them because they knew how long those equipment would last. And they'd come in and say, hey, how about a new piece of equipment? And then all of a sudden the lease would change, usually go down. And we'd save that much money. And we always had new equipment, we was always printing better, we always come out better, things of this type. So I just think it's something very important we look into.
Yeah, we've been keeping our machines to where they, have to be MacGyver and keep them together with a paper clip or something. So I think it's smart that we look and let them come back in, take it 3 to 4 years. And
It's called the 21st century.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, I think we've got you approved. And then we vote?
We never voted.
Okay, vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Appreciate it. I'm still thinking about that truck. I just can't get over that 91. Okay. Correctional Work Center.
Evening.
Good evening, sir.
Before we get started, I just want to take a second and introduce Miss Diane Chapman. She is the brains. Exactly. She controls the proverbial purse strings and the brain of the department. She's one of the reasons why we're so organized, and our budget is frugal and right down to the dollar as it is for the past several years. So I want to make sure that we mention Miss Diane, and I wanted you all to meet her. You've probably seen her name on emails and everything else for a while, but she is definitely an asset to our department and the county for sure. I've embarrassed you enough.
Yes, you have embarrassed me quite a bit. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and get started on the report, and I'll be pretty brief about that. Not a whole lot of significant changes in it. We had our board meeting this past month on the 1st, and just a few of the things that we discussed. Tennessee Corrections Institute came out and did our surprise inspection, and we scored 100% on that. No deficiencies. So we've got 100% with TCI and 100% with the American Correctional Association. So, a couple things I'm sure if you read down through there, Mayor and I met with the governor, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the budget, but I think that went really well. We started a new work release company with Wegman Automotive, and we baptized about 16 at church a few weeks ago. So that is our board meeting report. As far as our numbers, our head count's going up slowly but surely. We've been doing a lot of work with the Sheriff's Office, and we've got, I think, another meeting this week, Sheriff, I believe, tomorrow, and to discuss some other things, try to relieve some of that population over there by taking what we can. Work release is going great. Just kind of give you an idea of our work release versus others. We've got about 20-something% of our population goes out and on work release each day. If you'll contact Davidson County, a lot of times we look to Davidson County as that big brother, the one that is doing it right. And they've got about 12 or 15 on their work release. So we're doing pretty good.
Our worker report, if you'll look down through there, we had a total combined average savings of about $125,000 this past month. And then state letter pickup, we got payment $369.68 from them for picking up litter on state roads.
Will that pickup come a weather change?
It will. It will. Hopefully. And I think I sent Commissioner Pease some stuff that we were talking about this past week, and there are only certain roads that the state schedules us for throughout the week, and anything extra we try to get out and pick up. But again, that takes manpower. It takes one of our staff members to go out with them, and that takes away from the jail, and vice versa. So hopefully, with some things that we're going to talk about in the budget, we'll be able to do some more outside work. And that is our report.
Okay, any questions on the report? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Commissioner Gordon? Second, Commissioner Irwin. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Ask a quick question or update. There are probably some that don't understand why we have a board and what the purpose of that board is and what's their responsibility, why even have one.
Well, first of all, it's TCA, it's Tennessee Code Annotated Law to have a board with the workhouse. We are a very different department than what most people are used to dealing with, because we are separated from other divisions such as the Sheriff's Office, the Detention Center, the Department of Corrections. We're our own entity. And if we were to, per se, bring everything that we bring to the board to this meeting, we'd be here for the rest of the night. So a lot of that is compiled monthly within the board meeting, and then it's brought to you through our report. But to answer going back originally, it's the law.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I believe we're ready for your budget.
And I would just like to, while I've got Ms. Diane up here and embarrass her a little bit more, we have been 2 years without a budget amendment. And to some that may not mean a whole lot, but to us that means that we control that money the way that it's supposed to be done, down to the penny. And that I rely on Diane for. She loves to shop and save money. Those are two things that she absolutely loves, and it works out best for us to do it that way. But we've been, when we hear the term good stewards of the taxpayer dollar, we definitely try to do that. And then we give back at the end of each year. So just want to make sure that we mention that before I get into this speaking. Okay, we can start with some of the notable changes, mostly just kind of skip down to, I think it's, let's see, 160, line 160. We're asking for a corporal on third shift, which we've never had, and it's always suggested by the American Correctional Association each time that they come that we provide a supervisor for third shift. We've got 2 right now that splits that whole week. Every other shift we have 3 supervisors. And there's just as much inside work going on at night as there is outside work going on during the day. That's when we do all of our cleaning, most of our painting, most of building repairs is throughout the night. So we are asking for 1 corporal and then the 2 detention officers. Chairman, we spoke a little bit about the work that's going on outside of the jail and doing more pickup, and there are certain classifications of inmate that can't go to work with city streets. But they can go out to work with some of our correctional officers and do some of these programs and projects. So we're asking for those two, not for inside the jail, but outside work.
3 additional positions.
It will be 3 additional positions. And then we'll go down to 187, and with that, we would need to increase overtime pay $5,000 due to the changes in staff and those raises.
You're going to increase your overtime pay even though you would be adding 3 people?
Yes, sir, because those are going to be outside the jail. And that'll also come back, and we'll talk about that a little bit also. The $5,000, that'll include all of our additional training that's done off-site too, that some people may be getting overtime for. The 196, the in-service training, we discussed getting a contraband control K-9, and we would look at increasing that line $8,000, and that would pay for the dog and the handlers training.
Who's training who?
Diane? We would, and that is that's a good point, because we had to look into all these things and decide who was going to be, how was the cheapest way to do it.
I get it. I think that's a great idea to get, the dog is the best tool there is.
It is, and currently we'll occasionally call the sheriff's office and have them bring theirs out, but that becomes a little bit of a pain for them because they do have other duties to do. A couple of things that we noticed that pop up that the K-9 would be able to detect drugs, tobacco, cell phones is a big thing right now. So any kind of contraband.
Your dog can pick up the cell phone?
I think we train that way.
And that's specifically, we would look for the training, and that's one of the research that we did, was to find specific for correctional training.
Training's not cheap.
It's not, but we did find it the cheapest in this area. And we'll go down to line 312, which is a new line, and that's for contracts with private agencies. For the past 3 years or so, we've been contracting with Doors of Hope, paying them for a counselor and a facilitator that come into our facility 3 days a week and teach the females. And we pulled that out of one of the other lines and put it in a line to itself. And that deduction will show in that other line also.
It's a wash. It's pretty much a wash.
Yes, sir. Dues and membership, no change. Evaluation and testing, no change. Then we get to the operating lease payments that some of the others have talked about. We're requesting 5 vehicles. If you thought the juvenile truck was funny, maybe we can pass these around. Just to mention some of the vehicles that we have a 2000 Ford Taurus that's used for, all of our training that we do off-site, our staff has to drive this Taurus. It was the property assessors before it was ours. We'd like to be able to get rid of that vehicle. We've got 2 99 Safaris. Those were purchased new back in 99 or 2000. And we use our vehicles every day, mostly quite a bit throughout the day, too. We've got a Grand Marquis there, and 2 Grand Marquis that we would gladly give back to the sheriff's office.
No.
They were donated to us a few years ago, just to be able to have vehicles for our staff to be able to drive. We have a 2002 Chevy Silverado that Emergency Management donated to us. We have a Ford F-350 van that the Sheriff's Office donated to us. The Bluebird buses that you see there, one was donated, and then we bought one from a salvage yard. So if you can, the only newer vehicle that we have there is the 2003 Impala, and that was bought for the superintendent. And 2 superintendents have used that, and I'm afraid to get in it, so I drive my own vehicle. But just to give you an idea, I know Commissioner Gurley, you had to ask Juvenile about their transport. Just to give you an idea of ours, all of our transports are made by us, with the exception of if the Sheriff's Office is bringing over a load, they'll usually bring them. Sometimes we go over and pick them up there. We do all of our court transports. We do all of our hospital runs. Not to mention, we're out on these roads and these things also with the garbage pickups, going and doing special projects, church on Sunday, a little bit of everything. Now, most of the time, out of those vehicles right there, what would you say, Jason? 3 of them are out of service at some point at one time. So picking and choosing is kind of a problem for us. So that's one thing that myself and Deputy Mayor sat down and worked out with Enterprise what our actual needs were. And we're looking at getting rid of about 6 of these to get 5. I'll just be honest with you, we've got one of those Bluebird buses that hasn't run in nearly a year. It's starting to look like Sanford and Son out back. So we're going to have to do something. We've not gotten any new vehicles in years. Like I said, the last one that was bought for the Correctional Work Center was in this 2003 Impala. Before that, you can look back, and that 99 Safari was probably, or that Ford, well, no, that Safari was the only one that was purchased for the Work Center. Everything else has been donated. Now, we are nationally recognized as 1 in 5% of jails in the United States that are able to obtain American Correctional Association accreditation. And we're driving these vehicles. It's not only a danger to the inmates, but it's a danger to our staff. Diane won't even take one up to the mayor's office, and that is God's honest truth.
I can say I'm with you on this. Having worked for the county, Virgil and I have worked for the county. We've got a little bit of insight. You know, when you get a vehicle with 100 and some odd thousand miles on it, the truck that I turned over to Mr. Rogers back there, that thankfully he has a new replacement vehicle. I went on an emergency call down about the 91 mile marker. Two truck type vehicles collided. I got down there, I got out of my truck. It smelled like something was on fire. I thought, well, we got a real problem down here. The further I get away from my truck, the less I smell it. I go back up, and a bearing had burned out. You know, I was lucky. It was my truck that was smelling. I was lucky that that bearing didn't cause the axle, you know, the wheel to come off, and at running 80 miles an hour down there. So these vehicles, just because they're not got a lot of miles on them, they deteriorate with age. If they're doing any kind of transport of people, I really don't understand why the county, for so long, we have to go to lease options to do that. They've kept some of these old vehicles that really and truly shouldn't be driven by anyone. I mean, you wouldn't drive them, you wouldn't have your wife drive one of these somewhere if you had a vehicle in that kind of condition. And the maintenance people do the best they can.
They do.
But they've got a limited capability. If you see where they have to work out of.
And some of these parts that we're buying for these safaris, we have to get off of eBay.
Yeah.
They just don't exist anymore. And yes, we have shopped around for, as I said, we got one of these buses off of Salvage Yard, and it wasn't cheap. So that's where we're at. And imagine that scenario Commissioner Gurley was just talking about, driving down the road at, I'm going to say 55 miles per hour, not 80, but let's say we're going 55 miles an hour and that wheel does come off. That's our county's employees. But more so, what if you've got 8 inmates you're transporting in that vehicle? So that's where we're at as far as vehicles. It's not a if we're going to, it's a when we're going to have to do it at some point. And now that I've dropped that on you, I'll go to 334 here. $1,000 increase on copiers, printers, kitchen equipment, dish machines. These are our TVI, Correct Tech. That's just normal increases. You go down to maintenance and repair services. We're going to do a $10,000 decrease there and bring that down. Go down to the next one in maintenance and repair services equipment. We're going to do a $5,000 decrease. No major repairs needed at this time. We're taking really good care of the building, and a lot of that goes back to the inmates that are in our care that are doing most of the maintenance on it. Vehicle maintenance, you see that $1,000 increase. Depending on how this lease agreement works, we'll probably take that off of there. Medical and dental services, $1,000 decrease. We've been doing a lot more drug and nicotine tests versus x-rays. And of course, our dental services coming out of that too. Postal charges, a $50 decrease. Other contracted services, $20,000 increase. Just kind of like Lynn said, that's the things that we talked about, Summit, Dr. Rudd, our portables, MagShred, Corson, which is our fire suppression system. Custodial supplies, a $1,000 increase. No change in data processing, no change in drugs and medical supplies, no change in machinery parts, no change in our gasoline. As a matter of fact, they'll probably see a decrease if we do get new vehicles or newer. Law enforcement supplies, we're going to go down $1,000. We've been really good about keeping up with our needs as far as our equipment so far. No change in office supplies. We're going to decrease that prisoner's clothing by $2,000. No change in uniforms. Utilities, naturally, when you're housing human beings and your population goes up, utilities are going to increase too. So we're looking at a $15,000 increase in that. Other supplies and materials, $5,000 increase, but we'll see that. That'll change because of the canine dog care, our inmate hygiene items, blankets, mats, those type of things come out of that. And then we're looking at adding a line 709, and that would be data processing equipment, $100,000 for mechatronic equipment. What we would like to do, as the mayor and I have talked about this several times, he introduced me to the word mechatronic. I thought it was some sort of a transformer or something when he brought it up, but mechatronics is what we were doing with the Second Chance project. It's up under the mayor's advice. This could be a really good project, whereas the other one we just kind of had too many hands in, and and everybody wanted a piece of it, we would be doing it ourselves at the work center and funded by us as opposed to looking for other ways of doing it. Now, we met with Governor Lee, who is, as you all know, huge on rehabilitation and prison reform, and he seemed very excited about our proposal. So we're going to ask, well, we did ask him, we're going to kind of, I think the mayor's going to prod him a couple more times, or maybe already has, about supporting and funding a large portion of this. And that's kind of where we want to see the work center go in the future. You know, we're doing unskilled labor every day there. It's time that we start looking at some skilled labor. I said this to Governor Lee. I said, you know, selling drugs is unskilled labor. You know, why would we teach an unskilled labor when you've got an easier one that's that you can go out there and make more money at? So we're going to have to look at what the future is, and that's in mechatronics. And I think that comes to a 0.92274 increase this year.
Questions?
So you see job openings. We had a slew of graduates from Mechatronics.
We do. We already said they're begging for it.
That would hire these guys that have been convicted in the past.
We do. We partner with at least 3 on our work release program now that have those positions. And of course, you know, the mayor can tell you more about it, but it's big at MTSU, it's big at Motlow, it's even big at Oakland High School right now. It's the way of the future.
What is your, excuse me,
No, you go ahead.
just your return rate versus, can't say the word.
Our recidivism rate runs about 32%, which is a lot lower than most.
Would part of those people be able to get into that program?
Definitely. That would be the most of who goes into it.
Mr. Chairman, let me just kind of brief the committee on the mechatronics program. Actually got started about 6 years ago when the local manufacturers council had kind of formed themselves outside of the Chamber of Commerce, because they started meeting over at the TCAT Center, and they were actually getting together to try to talk and see how they can find a trained workforce, because they were growing so much. Oflex, located out by the interstate, they actually ended up moving. They couldn't get enough people to work. They were going to double the size of their plant, so they moved down to Birmingham and opened a second location. That's losing jobs. So they actually went to Mr. Spurlock at the time, who was principal, and he was the only principal. None of the other principals wanted to talk about it, because, like you say, some of them didn't even know what mechatronics was, but Mr. Spurlock stepped out and took that on, and they're having great success there. So they're actually teaching the mechatronics. It's a Siemens certification in mechatronics, and so they're teaching the certification 1 at Oakland High School, and those kids, if they start in the program as a junior or senior, they can actually graduate, and these corporations are snapping them up, and they can start out making $60,000 a year right out of high school. And then the corporation will say, we'll send you on to college if that's what you want to continue to do, if you'll come back and work for us. So Motlow got involved, and they started offering and teaching the certification for Siemens 2 in mechatronics. And so they're teaching at both locations, Tullahoma and the Smyrna campus. And then, of course, MTSU has landed the Siemens 3 certification, and it is kind of the top in the whole Southeast. They've got different states are coming and looking at the mechatronics program that we have here. It's the level 3, and because of Siemens has identified the M tissue area in Middle Tennessee with Montello, the high school, and now maybe corrections. They awarded M tissue back last June $278 million software Siemens program for the mechatronics. That was the largest grant ever given to any four-year institution in the state of Tennessee because they believe in it with the automobile manufacturing up in Bowling Green, here, Deckard, Bridgestone, GM, and then even Volkswagen. They see this as the place that they want to be. So when I approached Bill about this idea, I said, and I approached those folks who are running that, and I said, because your average stay at the Correctional Work Center is 90 days to, it could be up to a year, they could redevelop that curriculum for the Correctional Work Center and start training these guys to get a Siemens 1 certification and let them get out and at least let them get a job, That's why Governor Lee is so into going in this direction as well, because he's as he advertised when he was running, he was a pipe fitter, he was a HVAC guy. This whole building is a system with all the electronics. McDonald's is getting ready to go robotics and start cooking hamburgers with robots. This is the way of the future of where everything's going, and if we can take some of these inmates and start giving them some type of job, maybe we can increase or decrease that rate of recidivism to where they can buy a car and they get a place to live and they won't go back to the same hood where they were living or neighborhood where they were, going back to their same friends and getting back into trouble again. So it's a great opportunity. And of course, we made the ask for the governor if he would, he's got money allocated in this year's budget, so we made the ask for $100K. To help us buy the equipment. You have the room, you have space available at the work center where you can put the equipment in, and we can start training these folks and give them a real job.
And just to give you an idea of the commitment, I know that's probably going to be one of the questions that people have, or are these people going to be committed to following through? We've got a guy who right now who I've known for, and Chief, you remember him too, for 20 years in this county, who is, I've never known him to have a job. And we put him to work in the work release, and he saved $60,000 in his commissary. He's going to walk right out onto the street with a full-time job. He's going to be a supervisor. They're going to promote him to a supervisor as soon as he walks out the door. He's going to have a position, a supervision position. It's going to be with the union, and it's going to be more money than he's ever made in his life with $60,000 in the bank. There's the commitment that he's made to sticking with this. And I could go on with stories and stories and stories about people who've done that. We've got one who I just found out the other day who has been working with what company was it, that the one that's been working for a couple of years now after release?
Max Steel. Max Steel.
And there was one of the females too, with either at Swanson.
Yes.
Has been working there for 2 years after release. I mean, these people would not normally have a job. So if we can do that, what can we do with technology?
So Mayor, I take it you support that being in the budget?
Yes, sir, I do. We could make it contingent upon getting funds from the governor, because it's not going to work unless we don't get that.
Right.
Well, I'm willing to make a motion to accept that with that condition.
Sure.
I second that.
Have a motion and a second.
Is that for the whole budget,
Yes.
including the vehicles?
Now you're going to make me think about vehicles a little bit more too.
My concern about the vehicles is that we're making decisions that we probably are not capable of making, and I think the mayor is looking at the vehicle issue on a much bigger picture. And I'm not convinced that leasing vehicles is the best way to go. It may be, but I'm not convinced that it. So I would suggest that we take the vehicle request out of that budget, and I'll offer that as an amendment, and allow the mayor to adjust that budget as he sees fit, as he's doing that study department, not only for one department, but the whole county-wide. So I would suggest we take that out and send it to budget with a positive recommendation. I'll make that as an amendment.
Okay, we have an amendment. We have a second to that amendment.
Second.
Richard Santo.
I'm not saying that they're not needed. I'm just saying I don't feel like I can make that decision that we need to lease vehicles.
One comment, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for saying that, Commissioner, because we're meeting with, Steve and I are meeting with Enterprise this week and have asked her to bring back the compilation of them, Enterprise, meeting with all the different departments and showing what all the requests are, because we don't have any idea. And then when I bring back the budget to present to the full commission and my recommendation, I'll give you some options. One is through leasing. The other one is maybe going to ending fund balance and zero interest. We borrow from that for 4 years and pay for them. You know, those are the different options I want to be able to give the commission to make the best educated choice. You know, but what we have to do is start replacing a lot of this old, antiquated, unsafe vehicles and start on a rotation basis. We do it on our iPads, you know, that's not going to kill you, you know, but driving some of these vehicles like this 91 you've got out there, that Crown Vic or whatever it is, I wouldn't drive it either.
Well, I wish I had a...
It costs more for a transmission than the metal
It
is
does.
worth in the vehicle. So if we can start rotating, you know, so many vehicles per year, we may not get the big bite like we want this year out of all the requests of different departments, but if we start with, you know, every department get one or two, or not the whole slate, we start moving in that direction, and then every 5 years, we've got a whole turnover of our fleet. I think that.
And we spent quite a bit of time, Commissioner, sitting down with Enterprise and discussing a lot of things, and we had tons of questions, you know, what happens at the end of this, or what if we put this many miles on it? And it makes a lot of sense. It does. We're going to have to do something one way or another.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that I don't feel comfortable saying that leasing 5
Yes, sir.
vehicles is the right thing to do. And I want to have the executive of our county look at your department's request along with other departments' requests and then make that recommendation. I just don't feel real comfortable doing that.
And what I'll add to that, it's changed a lot since back in '93 when we did the take-home car program. Mr. Bullen was the chairman in those days, and I think you were here too, wasn't you?
I was.
Yeah. And so we looked at leasing very heavily, and Mr. Bullen just said, well, I don't want to lease, let's just buy them. And so we bought like 35 vehicles in 1 year that when we did the take-home program, and we've seen the success off of that year after year. Now, there's some cars there that've got ungodly miles on them, and the poor SROs usually get them, and other people, and workouts.
And then the workouts gets them after the SRO.
So,
hand-me-down.
That happens. When I went to MTSU out here, I used to drive a commodity truck for the school board. That's when you had commodities that went to schools. And in between classes, I would come to the school board down here and load a 3/4 ton pickup that come from Seward Air Force Base. And I had to get so many schools in, and I'd load it pretty heavy. In fact, when I would turn out on Broad Street, the front end would come up, and I'd have to wait till it come down for the wheels to touch the ground to steer. But when you pull up to a light, it was a straight shift truck. While you're sitting there, it would jump out of gear, and I'd have to get out and go around and punch it back in so I could go on down the street. So this is nothing new.
You look younger in that story.
This is nothing new. We have a motion to amend
Oh, I need to read it.
Huh?
I need to read it.
Okay, read that motion on amendment.
The original motion is to accept the budget as presented with a positive recommendation with the $100,000 for account 709 contingent on state funding.
That's right.
And the amendment is to take the vehicles out of the budget and allow the county mayor to adjust as he sees fit and make a recommendation.
Okay, we'll vote first on the amendment. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We'll vote now on the motion as amended. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Let's just commend this department coming in with an increase in the budget of less than 1%. It's pretty cool. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Take a break.
You never write it off.
Sheriff's Office report and budget.
Y'all want to take a fan break or anything before?
Anybody need a break? We'll take a 5-minute break, sir. Thank you, sir. They got a few things. Call it back to order so we get home in time for breakfast. We've got the sheriff's report now and budget. We'll begin with a report. I believe you have an amendment request as well.
I do. And I need to ask permission on to apply for a grant.
Grant, okay. Why don't you start with your amendment request, Mr. Brill?
I need to transfer money within the same budget from my building improvement 707, which is, I need to decrease it $3,000 to put in my maintenance and repair equipment.
Heard the request to repair some equipment in the kitchen.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Have a second.
There was a second.
The motion was made by Commissioner Pede, second by Commissioner Gordon. Call the roll.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes. I believe you say you got a request for a grant?
It's the same one that I've talked to y'all about. It's the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program, but I have to ask you every year if I can apply the 2019 years coming up. We've not received money from this yet. That's because the federal government just opened up the money, I guess, for us to get from the 2018 stuff that we submitted. So I'll let y'all know when we get it.
Move to approve.
Have a motion to approve, second. Commissioner Gammon. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion approved. And you have a report there. Any questions on the report?
Any of the funds you running out? Everything look okay?
Utilities. I'll have to, we'll wait. Got enough, but we'll have a better number for the next time.
I'm probably assuming you're adjusting to next year's budget request according to this, like jury witness and expense, it looks like there's a...
See, it depends. If I have 5 trials in a year, that I'll have to ask for more money. It's one of those things that you have to wait till the very end.
Okay.
And then I might use it to pay utilities.
We never know about jury trial.
Any other questions on the report? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the report.
So move.
Commissioner Sereno, have a second. Commissioner Irwin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report is approved. You're ready now to go into your budget.
Would like to get the smaller budgets out of the way. This is your transfers. That's, you won't see 122 and 121.
This is my drug fund, camp budget, 121. It's DEA funded, and I usually just take everything to zero and then come back and transfer the money back in July of whatever we have left in those line items. It has special purpose fund on it, if that's what you're looking, or transfers, 121 on the tab.
So you got a decrease in that one?
Well, I can't budget this 121 transfer. I have to bring it down to zero and then transfer it back. Right here, Mr. P. 121.
I got you.
Yeah. It has special purpose on the fund.
I was looking under it instead of.
I know, we tabbed it like that, yeah.
Okay.
You want me to go on to the sex
Yeah.
offender registry?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's 54160 on your tab. This is, the only thing I did this year is because I had to make an amendment, is I increased our TBI fees that we collect from the sex offender. And we have to give them $150 or $50 of that every time they register. And the salary, of course, just because it's a salary line item, will increase. So that's the only increases I have there.
You need a motion on these two, Mr. Chairman.
I thought we'd just take them as a
Yeah.
whole, wouldn't we? Rather than.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
These two together, or unless you've got another small.
I've got a lot
There's several more.
of these small ones. What,
Or you want to just go ahead and or do the budget as a whole? I'll do whatever you want.
It would make most sense if we just knock these budgets out, because most of these are separate budget items, am I correct?
We'll do your
They're
small,
separate budgets,
do all
but
your
they're
small
small.
ones, do all the small ones as a whole.
And yeah, let's just get these out of the way, and then we don't have to worry about them. The two big ones are the jail and that's a
Jail, let's see.
Registry.
then you have 54120, which is late duty or special Charlies. This isn't even coming from our budget. The state pays for us to do
Pass-through
this. So, but I still have to budget the money. 54130, traffic, that is what we help with the highway department, and that's our overtime and the car payment. So those are minor. If y'all want to wait on the narcotics budget, we can do that after the jail budget.
So you think all these four are your minor ones?
These are our minor ones. There's really no budget involved other than putting the money in the right line item.
Put them in the right line items, okay. So it's 54120, 54160, 54130, and 122?
121, 120.
122, 121.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve those.
Okay, got a motion approved, Commissioner P, second by Commissioner Irwin. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
You want to go to sheriff's office, that's the top one.
Back to the top, okay.
I tried, of course, I emailed y'all as much for what I could to let y'all know what was coming up, because I know what it looks like. A lot of what we're asking for right now is to take care of the people that we've invested in, especially the last 3 to 7 or 8 years. If we can keep them past 8 or 9, we got them. They'll stay, usually. So at this point, I can only say that I got a recommendation from HR this weekend, we looked at it, and we want y'all to know that we support that, and it would be the most beneficial to our goal of keeping our people at the sheriff's office. Okay, compared to what I did, compared to what anybody else did, HR salary study is where we need to be to keep our people. I'm not sure when that's gonna be presented, but it is, what would we say, about $1 million across the board increase. But, and you gotta take that down with Social Security and all the other salary line items that go with that increase, okay? It's not just salary, but Social Security,
Basically, salary
the
plus-
benefits
the salary
that
plus
come
benefits
along
is
with
what
that,
come along with.
right. But that is the jail and the sheriff's side of that, so certified and what the recommendations were as presented to us by HR. So I'll leave that at that.
And you
Just
don't
know-
have that, right?
Not yet, they'll present that at one point.
I don't know when Sonya's gonna present it.
Lisa and I have shared it with Mayor Ketron. He has reviewed it, and I know that Lisa and Mayor Ketron met today, because what I presented to the sheriff's office is what the survey is, plus lifting the table, doing the cost of living increase to the table. And so I presented just that data, and then he will have his recommendation as well as what will go in line. But what I did was just the survey and what the 2.5% would do to the table. So
And that recommendation we made to the budget.
it will be Mayor Ketron, I'm sure, and Lisa will make that recommendation. Of course, I'll be there for that meeting.
Let me say this, because we're dealing with different numbers, and numbers are coming from there. We did numbers, Preble worked very hard on coming up with SO recommended. The part that we didn't have was what Stevenson has been working on, was the survey, plus what the, there was, I think, a recommendation from that. So, and we got that piece this weekend, so that's the first look that we got at that. Once we saw that, then that's what we are saying we agree with, that as we saw it this weekend, was the salary plus that was done by the salary survey, and that's what we agree with that. So we're not going to present an SO version and all that, because that looked in line with what we need.
But I'm getting a little confused.
It is confusing.
You said something about $1 million, and this thing in red says 1.7 million.
Well, that's my operating too. I'm talking about
That's not
salaries.
just salaries.
Okay,
That's
so what you're talking about now is just
Salary.
salaries. Yeah, we haven't gotten an
It's
operating.
all our officers, everybody. It's supporting a raise for my communication officers, my certified officers, all the employees at the SO.
That's an increase of 6.5%, is that right?
A total of 1.7 is
No,
is an increase of 6.
The 1.7 million is including salary plus operating expenses. That's not just salary.
Okay, so $1 million in salary, which is what percent increase, do you know?
Yeah, I've got it right here.
Okay.
And it ended up, Preble and I had met several times prior to doing this, and she kind of had an idea. And when the survey came in, I believe it showed that all the things that she asked for, plus a little, was in there. I mean, really. So I've done mine plus the 2 extra days, because in this next fiscal year, there's 2 extra working days. So the current, as it is today, is $20,443,901. With the survey results and the 2.5% lift, it's $22,529,553. That's with the 2 extra days.
So what's the percentage increase total?
Sorry, who asked that? I have to calculate it.
Take your time. It's breakfast isn't 4 hours. We're good.
I'd just like to say that, if we don't pay our public safety employees, we're going to lose them.
10%.
You get,
I'm sorry,
10%.
10% increase now? And is that 10% increase to everybody, or is some going to get more percentage than others?
Well, that's what Mayor Ketron and Lisa are reviewing. My number is just like if this table was approved and the 2.5% was approved, what would it look like for that employee? What pay grade and step would they be in? So I gave those numbers to Preble and to Lisa and to Mayor Ketron for them to review, then, for them to decide. This will also include any new positions that they've asked for too. So it's not just for existing employees, it's for new positions that they've requested as well.
Actually, the questions that keep popping in my mind is it's not a question of it's being needed. It's a question of us funding a particular need when we also can't find ambulance drivers.
Correct.
And the school board is saying, we can't find teachers, we have to give people an increase. So I'm not saying that this is not needed. As a matter of fact, this commission kind of went on record as back in January with our legislative delegation to give us some help strictly to fund public safety and public education and an increase for those public servants. And I'm really on board with this being needed. I am. The real problem is that the state didn't come in with a request for alternative taxes, and it's putting us in a bind, and we're going to have to figure out exactly how we can accomplish some of this. And I'm all for looking outside of education. We spend so much money in the education process. Sometimes we overlook some of the other departments, and I know what you're facing over the next 20 years, and it's scary. So to have qualified sheriff's deputies, even if you want to call them police officers, I don't care, but to have those is going to be real important for this county going forward. So.
Oh, another thing, Commissioner, I've had 5 openings in communication all year. I can't get people to apply for that. And she's done a very good job, I think, of being, with what I saw about, they're not paid an exorbitant amount of money. I can't compete with Brickwood. I'll never be able to compete with people like that. But I need to be able to compete with the people that are around me. Because, and when you all see it, I believe that it's 500 people. I mean, it's a lot to look at. But it is spread out, and it's fair. It's just like, ask her to do 2 or 3 simple things, and the salary stayed. It showed what I already knew, that these guys need to start at a certain level, and I'll take them from MPD. They take enough hours, I'll take theirs, at certified level, at certified levels. But I just keep again, we're not talking about 100 people here getting thousands of dollars in raises. It's to bring everybody up where they need to be.
The salary survey that you've done, Sonia, indicates that this, I believe you just said 10%, this 10% is needed to bring our sheriff's department up to the average and the salary survey that you've done.
Right, it's like the starting for, one of the things that Preble and I discussed was, I know we get too far into the weeds, but I'll tell you just a sampling, was to bring in a patrol officer trainee in that first year to see if they were going to be able to catch on. So if you promoted a detention officer to patrol, sometimes they're a great fit and sometimes it's just not the right fit for them. So it gives them an opportunity then after they complete their 12 months of patrol officer trainee, then if they were eligible, they go up to the next level. This gives them an opportunity to move up, so that puts them in like the $40,000 range to get into there so that you're actually being able to recruit. Because one of the things that you're looking at with the things that are going on around us as far as it goes with law enforcement, you know, it's going to be more and more difficult to employ law enforcement agents. And so if you don't do some of these things to help encourage by giving them a good work environment and a good pay that they can, you know, support their families and things like that, you're going to have more issues. But it showed for those positions that we have been looking at for some time, and I think it's just taken the economy time to catch up to where we already knew that we were headed. And so it's caught up now, and so here we are presenting this. And the survey data that was used in here, 2 of the entities saw a need and already implemented their pay plans in October of 2018. And so we're getting 2 of the entities that we compared to, we're getting their information that they're using this year that will be current for this new fiscal year. And so the rest of the entities are in the year behind. So,
Thank you. Here's some will say to the salary thing, obviously. That 10%, was that counting strictly present employees or including future hires also?
it had some future hires in there as well.
All right, there's, yes, sir. The thing I've seen, I know of obviously sheriff's office deputies, but I also know other departments, public safety and not public safety, that they can't afford to buy homes here. They can't buy homes. They can't. The rent is through the roof. And if you look at the average salary that they're making, let's just say they have a couple of kids. You know, move to Woodbury maybe, but that's not going to work necessarily. If you're going to have 30 cars parked at the county line or the sheriff's office, you've defeated your purpose, you know, of having a take-home program. But that's kind of what you run into, is that may be part of the regional ambulance service, I'm not sure. I don't know if there's been any kind of survey to ask why, whether it's salaries or just going in the private sector. I know the sheriff's office, a lot of people going in the private sector is what's happening also because they need to make more money. Because right now, I don't know probably many deputies that even with overtime are not having to work a job or 2 on the side. You know, whether it be the extra stuff that comes up like ball games, you know, traffic control, dealers, all that type of stuff, you know, just to, you know, put food on the table and provide a decent life. So, I mean, I agree with Commissioner Phillips on that. I mean, it's just...
If I may, Commissioner, I think you're spot on that because we've got well in excess of 50% of our people having worked second, third jobs.
Yeah.
And the problem we've had the institute is things that you can't work so many hours before you go and do anyone, because what you get is a tired police officer coming to work a 10-hour shift, and he's already worked 1 or 2 other jobs, he or she.
Well, and that's going to apply to you on public safety also.
That's public safety also. We've been a long time coming to this point, and I just feel compelled that it's something that we need to do for our employees. I feel very strong.
I have sat here on this committee. This will make my 5th year sitting on this committee. And I think for 5 years I've asked that we need to do something. And it's been a long time coming.
Yes, sir.
And I think you 2 both saw me last year. I walked in there and I said, can you not give me something to show me exactly what in the world these people are getting paid? And you did. I mean, you worked here on it, and I appreciate you for that. But I take these people to heart. They're out there day and night with people of this county. They're sacrificing. And I know people say, well, they raised their hand, they took the job. But they took a job that there might be someday they don't go back home. And they're that important to us. And if we don't look after them, and I think that's what we've got to do. You know, you never appreciate something until you need it or until it's not there. And I think that's what we've got to do. And any way that we can, we need to see that this comes true. And I'll pass that word on to our budget committee and what we need to do.
Let me just ask a question, Son, and maybe even the sheriff could chime in on this. If 10% chokes us as far as funding this, is there a way we could, instead of 10%, do 15% spread over 3 years? Something like that? Would that accomplish anything?
You got, one, to answer your question, yes, we could do that, and we've done that in the past. Some of you may recall, some of the newer commissions may not remember, but Berger probably remembers from being here. When it got to where we present all the budgets and we said, okay, we're going to need so many pennies to fund the budget, and we'd say, okay, what were some of the things that we could do and all the other things that would be cut. One of the things that we have done is a cap, like if somebody was going to get more than $5,000, then they'd say, okay, well, you can only get $5,000 this year and you'll get the balance the next year. That's some of the things we've done. We've done a $5,000, we've done a $7,500 to do it out over a couple of years. The only problem with doing that, especially in our public safety departments, not that I don't say this for all employees, because all employees are important to me, but when you look at the public safety departments, what you're looking at for the things that they do each and every day, 24-hour shifts and so on, I don't think that, particularly public safety and IT, our technology departments, I don't think that it will help us with retention when it comes to some of the things that we're about to face.
Okay.
And from the IT standpoint, we have 5 new technology companies that are coming into Rutherford County, and another one just posted with the chamber that are coming in. So you're going to see technology is going to be, so not that I wouldn't want this for everybody. So if any employees are listening, please don't hear me say that. That's not what I'm saying. But to answer your question, and you asked the point, or Virgil maybe made the point, the last couple of years, I think I did it last year, and if not, it was the year before last, when we got into the budget, I actually did the scenario where I said if they were renting an average, moderate apartment, what would that cost? And then the cost of utilities and foods to compare to what our average median salary was across the board. And I had done that to show what you're saying is that they can hardly do that with their existing means, to have an apartment and a car and buy their gas and their food and have medical care and, extra money for a birthday present or something they may need. So I think this is something that, we're desperately needing for these type positions.
My reason to ask is that instead of a 10%, if we committed, this commission, we've got 3 years left on our term, if we committed to 15% instead of 10% and gave 5, 5, and 5 and gave them 15% over a 3-year period of time, they'd come out better at the end with more money, and our budget expense would still only be 10% spread over that 3-year period of time, but the employees long-term would be a lot better off. And the 5% would only cost them for a year. I'm just trying to come up with something that would get ultimately more money in their pockets, and maybe help us spread it out instead of taking a lot larger hit at once. It's just a question, and I appreciate your input on that. I do.
What's happened over time is instead of, I went back and looked, and I think in the 12 years I've been here, we've lifted the table twice, okay? And so what happens is, it doesn't matter if I do a salary survey I do a salary survey every year, and we try to adjust those positions that have gotten really skewed. We've brought that each time to budget and said, okay, these positions are skewed. What has happened is why we get this 10%, this big hit like this ever so often, is because we're not committed to doing a cost of living annually. I requested or recommended at one point in time TCRS goes and looks at the Consumer Price Index, and they look at that annually to see if they're going to give a cost of living increase to retirees' pay, and then they apply it the next fiscal year. And I recommended before that we follow whatever TCRS does for the retirees, is that if we lifted the table by that same amount every time they lifted the retiree table, we wouldn't get this 10 or 20% lift all at one time that like causes everybody to catch their breath. Because I think that's what's happened. It's been so long since we've had a lift to the table that now, it's caught up with us.
Commissioner Gurdon?
Yeah, you're exactly right. We're so far behind. What we ought to be doing is passing the 10% with another 5% in 3 years. What's going to happen if you do that with Commissioner Phillips? A lot of that's going to get eat up in cost of living. They're really not going to realize 15% by the end of that. It's going to get eat up in cost of living. We're already so far behind, and you've got to think of it this way too. We're shooting ourselves in the foot. If you're a company, if you're a corporation, and you bring some young person in, just got out of, say he's an engineer, he just got out of UT, he goes to work, and then 3 years, 4 years, 5 years later, I had that happen with me when my former employer, I had a guy that worked there 6 years, and then he went with another corporation. He was well trained, and so you lose all that training that you put in. You got to start out with someone else who just got out of school or just hit the market. So you lose that experience. And in the public safety area, the important thing, you lose that familiarity with people, you lose that familiarity with the geography that you cannot make up with just someone you hire a new body in. It's not the same. You don't have those contacts. You don't know all of what's going on in the area. And that type of experience is invaluable. It's invaluable in suppressing crime and solving crimes. We just, okay, so we don't pay these people well. They quit, and then we have to hire another body in their place. You just mentioned you had several communications officers positions open. That's a very high stress job, higher stress than most people who even want to contemplate. We're have on our plate probably next month looking at a new radio system, which I'm all for. We needed it a long time ago. But what's the interface between that? So we're going to spend several $1 million, and then we don't have anyone who's properly trained, that has any experience to interface in dispatch with the officer in the field, or the paramedic in the field, or whatever, or the firefighter in the field. So that experience really cannot be replaced with just a body. And I know it. We're looking at it, but it's because we haven't paid up to par for quite some time. So if we keep on doing the same old thing, and we're just going to dig ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper.
I've got to agree with Ms. Stevenson on, if we did just say 5, 5, 5, then we blocked ourselves at what we're doing each year is at 5, we're shooting at a moving target on us. That will continually be moving on us. At some point, we've got to catch our employees up.
And then part of that may be additional insurance costs and everything.
Well, and we know that's coming.
But here's one of the additional things I wish we could do, because we've been doing this for a lot of years. It's nice if you got 20 years in. It was nice when I had 38 finally in that. But as longevity is another way to value a long-term employee. I mean, it doesn't have to be the same every year. It can be the longer you're here, the higher it goes. Right now, I think it's still at 25. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you got somebody who's been here 5 years, and they get a check at Christmas for $98, probably after taxes. for 5-year service. So that would make somebody smile a little bit if I ever got increased. I think even the state has forever given $100 a year,
They cut it out.
up to 30.
They cut it out 2 years ago, I think.
What a bunch of funny daddies.
Yeah, and we did, Lisa presented that, I want to say 1 or 2 years ago, what the cost would be based on our employee population to raise it to $100 or even $50, and she's not in here, so I can't remember. It was a really big number.
Well, but I'm saying after a while, but I mean, if you did it, if somebody's been here 3 years,
If you did it in increments like.
do it
you
in
did,
increments,
I
it's
see
going
what
to
you're
be
saying.
different, and it wouldn't bite so much. But I'm saying, you got to start somewhere, but.
The longer you've been here,
But
the
the
bigger.
25, I mean, you know, it might give somebody something to look forward, you know, when they're here for a while, if they've got 10 years in, you know, because usually we come around Christmas and everything, that was nice. But, and I'm going to touch on this 1 second, but one of the issues we get into it is because the pain of growing is, and I'm going to just say one thing, and I'm going to get hit by a chair by any former commissioners, but if we just leave the doggone pay plan alone, we wouldn't be talking a whole lot right now, probably. Now, I know we had a couple of years that you have to accept that we had some really bad budget years, and it's a tough thing to swallow. Everybody had to bite the bullet, other than maybe the city of Murfreesboro, but all kidding aside. But I mean, you can't tell an employee if he comes in and gets a job 5 years from now what he's making, even with the standards you have now, because it keeps changing. It's changed and changed and changed since 1995.
Well, that's because the position gets reclassified. It's not gone backwards, actually.
It gets reclassified to a medium range salary is what happens. And that's what keeps happening with these pay plans and stuff. You start here, and every time you start getting up here, it drops back down here again. And it does.
Well, you're talking about the steps.
Yes, ma'am? Yes.
Yeah, well,
Absolutely.
I brought something for you, and I don't know if y'all want to get off, because you had mentioned that Thursday night in the commission meeting. And the reason why we had to put something in place is we had to be able to say, from a legal standpoint, how somebody gets put on the table and how they get moved with promotions and demotions. And if it's okay if I'll come up here. And so I did this so that you would be able to see what that looks like, and I'll explain it to you real quick. It won't take real long. You may have enough if you want. I know Preble's would have but I'll explain this to you real quick. So when somebody's hired in, if they come in with experience credit, if you look on the far right-hand side, it says relevant experience credit data service. So we say we get a certified officer from the city of Murfreesboro or Franklin or wherever. We'll put their years of full-time service, and it calculates, it has their pay grade, their job title. It's a max of 5 years experience credit. So in this example, John Doe had 13.8 years of experience, but he got 5 years in the benefit in that pay grade 4. Okay? So pay grade 4 is where he was coming in. If I'd have thought about it, I'd done this in a patrol example. So they're hired in building codes, 11/22/2003 to 1507. That gives them their years. That 3.12 is the years and months of service, the pay grade, their position, and the position number. Then they get promoted to an executive assistant. So we have to say, well, what is that person going to start at if they get, if a detention officer starts, but then they get promoted to patrol, we've got to figure out where we're going to put them on the table. You can't just say, because I've been with the county for 5 years, I'm in step 5 at a detention officer and go to step 5 in patrol, because that's not fair to the people that came in as a certified officer in patrol to just go straight up the line. And that's where the issue came in. When I came in, they were just going up and I was like, you can't, it's not just years of service period, it's years in that role or that position, your experience. So what this does is says, based on all the jobs that you've had, how many years of experience do you have for this position? And when you look down at the bottom, this says 15.61. So you got the evaluation is based on the pay grade, 6, 5, 4, on down. It's any experience in a pay grade 6 is given 100% credit, okay? But the other pay grades are lesser percent credit. So then the bottom number tells you, okay, that's their total years of service.
and then that gives you their pay grade, the 17. So that puts it at a 17. You have to have a formula to get where you're going, because if you don't, you won't be able, if the wage and hours came in and did a wage and hour audit on us, I can promise you, every single person is treated exactly the same.
And that's hence why we want a separate public
Want a
safety.
separate public
This is
safety.
exactly why.
That's why we've asked for both. separate
Everybody in
public
the
safety.
country's got it.
Except
We're not
us.
the only ones doing it.
Well, I talked to the city of Murfreesboro, and they use a very similar formula for theirs, because that was one of the things that was mentioned is the city of Murfreesboro pay plan. So I went and met with their director and sat down, and they
Public
use,
safety plan or paid plan?
it's their HR department also
But not
sets their
public
salaries.
safety.
It's not public safety, it's a pay plan.
It's a paid plan.
But they use a
If you look
formula,
at
is
the
what I'm
trend
saying.
across the U.S.,
Yeah.
they're going to public safety.
But you gotta remember on the city, they also give holiday pay, longevity,
We're working on
number of
that.
other
Yeah,
things.
there's a lot of things, a lot of difference that we don't get.
We've kind of gotten into it.
Yeah.
This is a whole new thing, I'm sorry.
Totally confused. I may have led us there, and I apologize for that. Commissioner Gurley, I wasn't disputing at any point in my questioning about the need. And let me make that really clear, I'm not. If we don't do our due diligence here and brainstorm a little bit at our public hearing that we have when we talk about property tax increase, there's going to be a lot of folks to come up and ask us why. And it'll be a lot easier for us to explain it, that we've talked about alternatives, and this is the only thing that we could come up with that was fair and equitable. And that's the reason, one of the reasons that I've done that. We've also had a number of commissioners that have been elected more than one term about not ever raising property taxes, not ever. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows when we do something like this, that we're probably committing ourselves to living outside of a budget that would not require a property tax increase. We have to be prepared for that, and I, for one, am. And let me defend the city of Murfreesboro. I live in the city of Murfreesboro. I pay county taxes just like everybody else does. So quit bitching about the city of Murfreesboro, because we pay city taxes on top of that. Maybe that's the reason we can afford it, or maybe that's the reason that they can afford it. But to say that the city of Murfreesboro is doing something, maybe that's what we're talking about now, is being able to have more money available like the city of Murfreesboro has available, and that might require a property tax increase. And that's where I'm going with all this, you guys.
But we don't
is
have
that-
sales tax, there's the issue.
Well,
That's a biggie.
there's some legislation that's going through the state right now requiring some sharing in it, isn't it, Mayor Catherine?
No, sir, it's been deferred to next year. There are two things.
Okay, Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just briefly say, and I know we can go on and on, but Lisa, Steve, and I have been working on my budget to be we're going through each department's budget. I'll be prepared on the 8th. We're only about 2 weeks out from that, but at that point in time, I'll be making the recommendation to the full commission, as I've been talking all fall and all winter, that my plan is to raise the table by 2.5%. Also included in that will be a step to also the recommendation to increase the step by 1.75%. And then item C is for the pay plan. I was able to, as my good friend Rogers Anderson in Williamson County, county mayor, he was able to share with me, and I've got it to Sonia. Sonia has plugged that into the pay plan as well. And I'll present it in several different scenarios to the full commission. You can pick A, B, and C, which will probably lift us to the point where our employees have never been lifted before. You'll see some pay increases where they'll be able to survive and buy a house, Commissioner. Now, whether or not the commission's willing to fall on the sword this year, If you're gonna fall on the sword, I'd do it this year, you know, because at least you got 3 years before the next election. All right? Don't wait until the year before the election, okay? That's just the political side of it. The commission will be able to pick and choose. If they just want to lift the table by 2.5%, there's the number. I'll provide that to you. If you want to do A and B, the table and the step, the 2.5 and the 1.75, you can do that, or you can do the pay plan of C. There's so many different scenarios I'll present to you that let you pick and choose what you feel like is best for you politically and what's best for our employees. But I'm going to present all three of them to you and give you that option. My recommendation is go A, B, and C, because that will actually put us in a position to where we're stabilized, and then from that point forward, we won't have to compete with other people if you choose A, B, and C. We'll be at a level to where no other county will come in and take our people. The only reason they take them is because they need somebody in a hurry, but I don't think they'll leave us because of salary. It's because they're dissatisfied with who they work for or something else. So this is going to take us up, but be prepared to vote for a property tax increase. That's going to happen if you go with these salary studies. But I think all of us have been saying all year long that our employees are the biggest asset that we have in the entire county. We're not a small county anymore. We're not like we were when I got elected, Jeff, Steve, back in 1990. We're not small anymore. We're going to be the fourth largest county, and we're going to have to pay our employees. And the citizens, I don't think, will complain that much because they're prepared. The city's doing the same thing after 20 years, just the growth and the things that we have to provide for our citizens are going to be there. So I'll be prepared on the 8th. We'll be prepared to give that to you.
You talking about to give it to the budget committee?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, once it goes to the budget committee, it'll be distributed, then might as well just go ahead and send it to all the commissioners at that point in time, and what y'all do, everybody will have an opportunity to look at that.
I'll just add a footnote. Hamilton County is getting ready to a pretty massive increase on their public safety. So we've been following that one pretty close.
See, they do the 25 miles per hour.
I'm not sure about that, but we're here and they're getting ready to bump that 10,000.
I think they do. Because
It's already paid about 10,000.
they had big turnover.
Yeah. Huge.
Huge one.
Huge. That's what we're trying to do.
And that's what we want to prevent.
That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, where do we go from here?
Well, we can talk about the little 20% of my budget that doesn't look like the 80% of my budget, which is operating
Let's go to your
costs.
20%.
Operating costs, I think we do well about this. It's usually an 80-20, right, salary, so we try to stay with it, like insurance and everything else. But we did go up, asking for $800,000 more than that. What I do is try to show you where our significant increases are, so you're not looking at every line item. You can look at every line item, but the next pages will explain a lot of our huge increases. 317, the state of processing service. This Motorola upgrade is usually $28,000, I think. This year it's 48. And you try to make me understand why, Keith, but anyway, because they said so. And that's what happens when you have a product like Motorola.
We skipped an upgrade.
We skipped,
Skipped an upgrade, and this is two.
We're supposed to be on the same level as EMS and Emergency Communications District as well, same level of at their host control. So to do that, we skipped a year, and it's going to cost us
double.
Almost double.
Our 5410350, this is new to us. I'm trying to track how much we spend, and I didn't even realize we had an internet connectivity line item. And I found it, and I'm like, well, this will help me track better what we're paying to get that. So I'm moving some money from, if you go to the line items, you'll see some red areas in there, and that's going to be where I'm moving some of this money to put in this line item. It will include us, hopefully, with your blessing, getting our SROs the laptops they need to be road ready, which will require them to have the connectivity within their vehicle like everybody else, because they do write reports, they do work recs, and they have to have the same tools. They're certified officers, they need to have the same tools as certified officers. And they need to be road ready when we need them there, because we do call them out in certain situations, and they just need to have the same capability. So communication equipment, the handsets, we were only asking 40. Yeah, they're outrageous. There's 7 with everything attached to it, $7,000. Started talking about leasing the communication project. We need 101. And there's some leasing options there, but at least the 40 will get our SROs on one radio, right?
Right.
And they can be able to talk to us from the school.
From schools.
Can we, I was just talking to Motorola this morning. They plan to deploy, if the communication project is approved this coming month, to go ahead and get subscriber units on out in the hands.
Well, if that's the case, then of course this would go away.
And that's what I was told this morning. And to me, we just need to wait, if that be the case. And then if we don't approve the project on the 29th, then we can come back and address that.
Well, our problem with this is not knowing, even approving the project, what's going to come out of when. We've got to continue operating, but if the handsets will come
right.
out, then this will go away.
Handsets are an easy thing. You don't have to go out and install equipment in tower sites, hang antennas and all that. You order the handset, program the handset, and put it into use.
Our thing we have to plan for is if
I would
it's
like
not
to
coming.
recommend that we at least postpone it until after we make a decision on the communications project on the 29th.
I can
Because I
decrease that.
think, I think if that be the case, then there's no point putting it in your budget.
Well, I agree. If that's coming and that soon, our only problem, as I explained, we didn't know when
Yeah,
that.
I know. If it don't, then I think we need to bring it back to us.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And if for some reason or another, like I said, if for some reason or another that doesn't happen, then bring it back.
Okay, sure.
So that will be reevaluated, even the 180 that we usually get. If the radios are coming in, we could cut that 280 that we're requesting significantly. If we know the radios are coming out, that could literally go down.
Change that.
For mobiles.
Yeah. Is that what?
You still want to maintain mobiles.
Yeah.
Yeah, got to maintain.
So I'd have to relook at that, but that would really bring the, at least I said, what, 120?
That'd help.
$120,000 down.
Yeah.
Because of JMS, because of the new system, this was brought up last year and it was cut. Okay? Our DP equipment, we have to have new servers for this. There's just no, we can't operate on an 8-year server anymore. This is all supporting equipment for that server, except for the last one, which is the SRO division, to get the laptops that they need. Like I said, they carry this to school, they'll leave it in their car, they'll take it home. You know what I mean? It's going to go with them just like our gun does. Because that's how important these laptops are to us. Now, they will do their reports in the schools, on the way home if need be, but it makes them road-ready deputies, which gives me 60 more people to use when I need them if I have to pull them out, okay? It's a big price. It's $218,000 for those cut books. But that does come with all the Verizon cards that's needed for the rocket modems and stuff that's inside the vehicle.
These servers you're replacing is part of that communications.
That's just for our storage.
That's for our storage.
That's just for
Yes, sir.
storage, yeah.
It's data
It's
processing.
run as a department, right?
Yes, sir.
And I think the average norm is 5 years on replacing servers, the server itself.
It is. We've bled them, as long as we can bleed them, so we're going to need to.
The 16 PCs for warrants, and also when I asked for some in booking, we asked for those last year and it was cut.
Cut too.
I have to have a Windows 10 machine to run this machine, the new system we have. They don't have it, and we can't put it on it. Has to be a Windows 10 machine. This one I like to talk about, I think the mayor and all of us were in agreement that day. We need 40 AEDs, that's $1,250 a pop. I really feel like with the fire department and the ambulance all having this equipment, I'm not sure we should continue to carry them.
My concern is this, that we're carrying AEDs in all of our cars with the cost of this. We've got fire service and EMS is carrying AEDs also. Is it paying for itself or not? And so this was a question that we discussed with the mayor. And bring it forward to this committee is we're advocating is let the fire and let the ambulance who is responding to emergencies carry the AEDs like they are, and then we would stop carrying them. These sit in our cars, the heat and everything else is
Constant battery changes.
Battle with these.
We have any numbers on how many, I can't recall.
They're very
They're
few.
few.
Is that right?
Very few.
You got any numbers on how many times you've used it?
That's what I mean.
That's what it is. We don't.
Did it for the grant,
We
but
did
now
it
the
for the grant,
grant's
but
out.
after the
now.
grant's out, then it didn't keep them anymore.
The batteries are running about $230,
About $230
and we're having
for
to
a battery.
replace them now.
Yeah,
Quite a bit.
They would depend on CPR then instead of that,
Yes.
if you're first.
If we're first, that's correct, sir. So it's here, but that's a question that we bring before you.
Your budget goes before the budget committee on the 8th, is that correct?
Yes, sir, it does. Or is it nine? Nine, okay.
Well, that's about why that 50,000 without all the support
That's
we have to buy the
$50,000,
batteries, the
yeah.
pads and things like that, so that I can take away from that. And the other thing we're asking of law enforcement equipment is it's these protective suits that our SWAT unit can wear when they're going to make entry into a home that may involve illegal drugs. And the fentanyl, it protects them from the fentanyl or the meth or whatever, it protects them. They have disposable suits, but they do this quite a bit. I can at least get 8 uses out of this. You know, and that would probably last a year and a half or so. But I would have put them all in these suits. They're a Vortex type suit, but after 8 or 9 times, they won't back you that it's going to protect you from anything.
What are you using now, disposable suits?
We're not using anything.
Okay.
We don't have anybody.
How do you do
Contaminate those things.
You know, I didn't ask them.
But
I mean, it's so what you buy with it,
comes with it.
you have to rub or wash the
methodology.
suit down with it.
I would assume they would go through normal decon
Yes.
procedures.
Procedures they would.
With the fire and
That's
EMS
correct.
and everything.
That's correct.
And those are well established.
Yes, sir.
The disposables doesn't come, I mean, I remember now it being almost higher than just getting the 8 uses, you know, and sort of study how much we're using them, when we're using them, how we use them. But there's several here lately that they didn't feel real comfortable being the first to go through the door.
To go through the door.
I'll tell you
so,
that.
We might provide some protection. We're just too much fentanyl out there now.
It's no longer just bullets.
I think we've already taken in a little over 1.4 million in drugs this this year, so it's an increasing problem.
As y'all can see, my 718 vehicles, we have options. We could purchase and upfit 20 Dodge Durangos at 1.2 million. I can lease 28 vehicles for $468,000. And that's with the striping, everything included except for one thing, and that's because we have to do it, and that's to put the rocket modem in with the laptop. Everything else would be in our driveway, completely done.
28 vehicles is 468 annually.
It would go down the next year to 262,000 for those 28 vehicles until the end of the lease, either
4-year.
or we could choose a 5-year.
5-year lease.
And it would go down even further with a 5-year lease. We just hadn't chosen an option yet.
So I'm not sure my math is going to add up, but 4 years, it'd be almost this identical amount as purchasing those vehicles. And this is one of those things that, with some experience on this committee, we wear those things out in 3 or 4 years anyway, don't we?
Well, that's the problem we're having right now. I have, 23 vehicles with over 100,000 miles. I have 16 SRO vehicles with over 170, 2 at 200, and I'm spending $2,000 on some part when the car's not even worth $300. I mean, we have never had a good fleet management system down there, ever. We just keep them and keep them. We put $600 tires on them, and we just keep running. I think a seat has collapsed in one of the SROs. So we had to put a new seat in it.
I think one of the things that a lot of places do, I don't know if everybody does as much as they used to. I'm not sure what THP does anymore, but on your vehicles, they usually put a top mileage on it, and then it's traded. It's gone.
How does our insurance pick up on a lease? For instance, if we got a bunch of hail damage or a wreck, or
It's
like right now, if we tow one,
It's no different.
it's
Just subject to your deductible.
okay, because we've got a really, in my opinion, really high
You go
deduction.
to the,
Just hoping it might be a little different, but
Average
same.
Yeah, of course, the problem nowadays on these cars, it doesn't take much to do
road
3 or 4
patrol,
hours
like you're on
there.
patrol,
You get a fender scrape, you'd be amazed at
do
what it
about
costs.
150 a night,
If you have an undercover vehicle and it gets burned,
but we're doing all
Never
the
trade
cars
out.
in
We
there.
gotta rotate it out.
So you're looking at
you just send them a letter,
about
explain your
1,600
situation, and they'll rotate the car.
our cars are run. And I got 350 of them.
It's a conservative 150.
I was saying, but the hope here is too, of course, get into this, is that our maintenance costs on the other vehicles at some point start coming down.
County,
So we're
it just
gonna
seems like
have
it's
a newer
larger
fleet.
one.
So
Then what we're trying to keep in service.
are the lease
Just
programs
makes no
that we're
sense to me,
looking at
put a transmission in a car,
unlimited
it's not
mileage?
worth $1,000. But on the other hand, you can't spend $49,000.
I know we talked about the van, the van, and after 4 years.
At the very end of this, I have provided y'all with what's been provided me. It's gonna be this page that's folded, and it's the breakdown of the lease cost and their quotes as far as what the cost is. It's folded over like this.
It's the very last sheet's in your
Right.
packet there.
What vehicle would you be leasing?
The Durango.
That I've ridden, all right, you're welcome to this.
The Ford is just has so many recall issues, and we're having a hard time getting the recall issues fixed on the Fords, that the Durango has been a good product for us the last couple of years as far as maintenance and repair and.
Rear wheel drive. Those are still rear.
Let me just recap this thing. We buy the vehicles, we wear them out in 4 to 5 years, and they're not worth anything. And we're paying $1.2 million. And for about the same amount, we can lease 8 more vehicles, and they don't belong to us. We wear them out in 4 or 5 years, and it's somebody else's problem.
This
Yes, sir.
we could give it right back to them, and since we're paying a depreciation cost at the front end a little bit, on the upfit, we pay half of that up front. We zero out in 4 years, so if they get $4,000 on their auction, that's our money.
That's our money, it comes back to us.
4,000 comes back to us.
Are you looking into this too, Mr. Mayor, as far as the lease type of situations?
Yeah, as I said earlier tonight, we're meeting with them, with Mary Elizabeth this week. I asked her to bring every department, what every department has requested, so I'm going to get a full accounting on that. But, that's what caught my interest back in September, October. I think the last administration had Enterprise had tried to come in and talk to the last administration, and for whatever reason, they never met with them. So I jumped on it in September. It made sense to me, and when they told me, like, if you buy a pickup truck, I know the ambulance department wants to buy a pickup truck, and pickup trucks are holding their value so well, and like Preble was saying, if at the end of the lease there's $4,000 left, used to in the old type of leases, that would go back to the leaseor. And in this case, if there's $4,000 residual value left at the end of that lease, we can take that $4,000 and pour it right back into going towards a brand new lease for another 4 years.
And if we want to keep let's say these Malibus, we only have 75,000 on one of these Malibu. It's ours for $400, and that's
We can buy it
just
for
their
$400
fee
in a lease.
to do the processing.
SRO's going to get some really nice vehicles.
Well, they're going to get the ones that only have like 100,000 miles.
And plus, they already put the equipment and everything on it.
Yes,
It
sir.
comes to us ready to go.
When it's drop shipped to us, the only thing that's not in it is a rocket modem in our computer. It's striped, the light bar, everything's in it.
It's got camera.
Nice.
Cameras installed
Cameras
now.
installed, yes, sir.
My daddy told me if it sounds too good to be true, watch out.
Oh, trust me,
Me.
when she got the numbers and everything, because we actually got
They
the
didn't trust me.
idea.
They didn't trust me.
Yeah, I didn't trust him immediately because we kind of talked over here while he was presenting it, and we said, So we got some numbers, and then when Preble brought them in, I said, okay, what's the catch?
Sullivan County, a lot of
They're
your
on.
Franklin County I live
Hamilton
in,
County.
they're going.
I talked to Hamilton County. They've been, they're in
Hamilton's
their
going.
third year with this lease
Saves you a
program.
lot of headaches.
Chicago PD, every car.
Kind of
Yeah.
thing outfitted,
Huge.
all that.
Huge. The problem we got now is you drop ship one, we get it on our lot, then we're having to wait for equipment to come in, and then we're in competition with Metro and everybody else to get our car outfitted. Well, Metro drops
So it sits
200
there
cars in
out of
there.
service for a
Guess
while.
who's gonna get first?
I've
Done.
got 4 or 5 down there right now just waiting to be
We're waiting
finished
for
up
upfitting.
on truckers.
So whereas when they come in, we drop it's gone. Big advantage.
Far,
No, I'm with you.
yeah,
on
they got
that.
state contract.
We have,
Stay busy. They're backed up.
but with Enterprise, they're not beholden to that. They can go anywhere they need to
go
get
anywhere
these
they
cars
want.
outfitted, so they're not stuck waiting.
If we drop some of the things we discussed, it's the radio, okay? That would shave, and the AEDs, we're looking at like 200,000 that I could take off of that 800, okay? I would have to wait and shore some things up, so maybe 600,000 more. And a lot of that's gonna be your data processing equipment, and all the license and
Well,
maintenance
license
agreements.
contracts and
and-
all that, it's.
I got a question anyway. The server room, if y'all gonna move that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Working toward that
it's-
right now.
Toward that now.
That's why you see a cooling unit involved in that.
One of the things we're doing is we're looking at AT&T, Black Box, and everybody. Of course, they'd have to move their facilities.
You kept trying to find places to stick it.
Yes.
You're gonna have to raise the floor in there
It's-
too.
Yeah.
So we're going to, we're going to move it to the old evidence part.
Yeah.
We've got a room there. We're going to raise the floor to make sure in the event, for some crazy reason, water gets in there, it's not going to get to our equipment. Once we get the lines out of where the server room is now, which is a junk room, basically, we're going to pour concrete in that and cap that. And hopefully that'll eliminate our waterfall.
Where you go to from here?
Well, I'm gonna finish up, is we're gonna request 5 patrol officers, okay? I don't think you got that, did you? On the 5, I think I got about 323,000 at what you proposed, or close to it. But that would also, and of course, you'll get his recommendation on that,
Yeah,
I'm
here
sure.
again, we made this request in 2017, we made it again last year, and they got cut both times. First time was cut because of the courthouse. We needed 32. That was cut to 20, but we had to hire 8 to man the courthouse, so then the deputies part got cut. So that's why we are looking now that we're in our 3rd year, we still need patrol deputies, and so we're coming back at that request.
Is that the only employees you're asking for?
No, sir.
Boats?
No, sir.
We'll go to jail
We're
when we're asking.
in jail.
To the jail, yeah.
But we're finished with this one? Unless y'all have questions.
Okay, on the sheriff's budget.
I don't know if this is a proper motion or not, and it might not be. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but they're making some adjustments kind of on the fly here, and which adds to some confusion. And the mayor's made some comments about salaries too, and I'm tired of cutting your budget. And I'd like to make a motion that we forward this with some of the comments that you've made as it relates to being able to reduce some of the budgets onto our mayor with a positive recommendation so that he can make whatever adjustments he wants to make and present that to the budget committee. I want to give the mayor some feedback from this committee that we support the request with some adjustments that they've made so that the mayor would have our input as he makes also his recommendation before the budget committee. But we seem to fund everything that the Department of Education requests every year. And public safety seems to take the back seat every year. And Mrs. Stevenson, I think, has done a wonderful job as it relates to explaining some things to me. And that's the reason that I think I want to forward this on to the mayor with a positive recommendation and allow the mayor to have his input before the budget committee. And that's coming up pretty quick on the 8th of May, I think they said. I'm not sure whether that's a proper motion or not. Robert, do you have any idea whether it is or not?
I don't disagree with what your line of thought is. I think we're going to have to make a decision in salary, and I think he's made a good case of, he's going to bring us 3 options or maybe more, and that's going to really impact this budget. Which is the majority of the budget. Your operating expenses, if you take out what was the total you came up with if we removed the
Radios,
280,000 somewhere
right in there.
So we almost stopped that down to 1.1 million on that increase. So I don't have a problem with what we're looking at, but still I want the input. I want to hear what Lisa's got to say on the proposed revenues that we've got to offset this too. But yes, I'll second your motion if you want to make that
Well,
motion.
we've already got a second. He's been sitting here waving like he's bringing in plane.
I just wanted to make sure that it was proper. We've not done that before, but just to give the mayor some guidance as to how this committee feels before we forward it on to the budget committee, and that'll give the mayor opportunities to look at the lease situation for the cars and compare salary adjustments, the recommendation from the department. And our input is that we think something has to happen and we want to see something happen and are looking for you to make a recommendation before the budget committee. And it might be good that some of us, if we can, attend that budget committee too and have input if we can be recognized by the chairman.
I would appreciate your input. Would you like to read that back?
I will. Approve the budget with consideration of the comments made as to potential cuts of the AEDs and the radios with a positive recommendation to the budget, to the county mayor, and allow the mayor to have input.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, I think we move on now to the jail. Are we looking at the jail? Let's don't move on to the jail.
Yeah. Well, I'll just run through this real quick, and then we can go back and debate it and talk about it. It looks like a big increase, but again, I considered some agreed value to the salaries at this point, so a lot of this, 52% of the budget is salaries. We are asking for 10 detention officers, and this is simply so we don't have one detention officer in a pod. Four pods by themselves, okay? They're out 15 hours, so you got one person walking through a pod by himself or herself, really.
I'll just quickly comment on that. We've got 48 to 52 inmates per pod. We've got a rover who roams through these 4 pods checking on inmates. The inmates, because of the population that we've got, to meet TCI standards, we have to leave them out of cell 15 hours a day. So they've got to be out in the community room 15 hours a day. I've got one person roving these 4 pods. Of course, obviously, that in itself is a very dangerous situation. The other problem that we've got on the inmate movement, if I don't have somebody that we can move from another floor for an inmate movement, either to go to court, go to a medical appointment, whatever, I've got to take that rover off of the floor and move the inmate down to either booking or wherever, and so then I've got 4 pods unattended except for somebody in the tower looking at a TV screen.
If it comes to fruition as it relates to the presentation that was made by the pretrial court judge earlier, would that alter that recommendation as far as the number of people?
No, sir. Because I still got 4 floors of inmates, 4 pods per floor, and I still got to have a rover roaming those inmates. We've got a situation, that jail has never, since its inception, had the number of people that it takes to run that facility. There's one whole side of that jail, there's supposed to be 2 control points per floor. The second control point on those tower has never been opened since that jail's been built.
The population's doubled since that came around.
Right now, today, as of 3:30, I hadn't gotten a report yet. I'm running 91% in the jail. Through the weekend, we were running 93 to 94%. We're running through like 919 inmates per day. Of course, some of them today, 21 of them got out, so it reduced our population. But I've got a situation there that we have got to provide some security for our people. And these 10, what it does, of course, they'll be spread over 3 shifts and over the 4 floors, trying to give some additional rovers to relieve that one person that's going around. The other problem that I've got too is because of that is in the second floor pod is where our mental health, also the extreme medical, we have to have somebody in that pod physically 24 hours a day with them. So I can't even have a rover there. I've got to have somebody else doing that. So that's kind of the situation is why we're asking for these people. It's just come to a point where it's getting critical because of our population.
We saw that when we were touring the jail just a few weeks ago when we were out there, and you could see that. If any of you that were there, you remember that you only have one individual in there. And then I remember that tower. Every time I've ever been out there, I always comment on the fact that you have that one section back there. It's available, but they don't have anybody to operate that. And I always comment to the fact that I'd hate to be that one rover down there walking in the midst of that down there.
It's a interesting situation sometimes for that person. And we've had some independent studies done by CTAS on jail staffing analysis, and it calls for a significant increase in what we've got in pipe. So what we're trying to do now is to logically approach this and not try, of course we can't do it all at one time, but then start moving towards where we can get our staffing levels up in the jail. Because I mean, we're going to have these programs and trying to do the pretrial and whatnot, but the population of this county is increasing. I don't see it stopping, and of course with that is coming another element that we're going to have to deal with. So that's kind of the need.
I'll say real quick, I know everybody's getting tired. From the beginning, when we, I think 88 people hired 1 year, if I remember correctly, 97 or
97.
And there's a lot of people. But what you look at on the jail side, you can't figure patrolman, everybody the same way, but you basically have a post position as a chair, let's say, or somebody on foot, 24 hours a day. The simplest way to figure it on staffing analysis that TCI and everybody uses is you're looking basically at 5 people, not 3, not 4. It's 5. I mean, that's how the hours figure out. And the longer you have an employee, the more employees it takes in the sense of years of service. Because they're having more time off, this and that, schools, vacation, holidays, sick time, you name it. When they're done that.
Okay.
Move on to the significant increases of the budget, which will be your operational budget here, not just salaries. The doctor, the contract, that will increase this year with what we bid out, so about $326,000. The overtime is going to be 100 because I failed to put transport in the jail overtime last year when we got the 8. And that's why I had to amend the budget this year. So I'm only amending it to where I am right now, which would be $400,000 with all the transport included and booking, and everybody's included in that. Then we have a data processing supplies. We're putting 32 new cameras in all our blind spots, and there's 32 blind spots throughout detention. And that's about $15,000, even with the supplies and stuff. We should be able to get that done. We're adding 25 door access readers to any door that will open an active pod. So what this does, it tells us who's going in the pod, what time it was open. It reads that card. So it's another type of check system for us to see where our employees are if we can't see them. And that we're logging our TCI standards, we're logging the watches, and we're logging and going in and looking. And that card reader will help us do that. And they're 25, that's about $62,000 for those card readers. The 12 workstations in booking, so we can run JMS. And even though we decreased our budget about, $500,000 with food services a couple of years ago, the equipment is shot. And we just got an email that a steamer went out.
While we're
So,
sitting here, one of them
yeah.
caught fire. So
What I would like to do is, if I can use money I have now and I can buy anything now that I can get, I will. I've got quotes on these equipments, and we'll do our best to get what we can now, okay?
Is that a steamer?
Steamer.
It's a big kitchen steamer for food.
Oh, okay.
Big.
Steamer.
Oh, steamer.
Yeah. big-
Steamer.
No, it's not a stop.
But anyway, it's not inexpensive.
That's for the employees, I mean. Yeah.
That makes a Jim.
I would get 2 tilt skillets, 3 double ovens, and 2 food steamers.
Yep,
And that's right at $87,500. And then my other equipment is we don't have, our washer and dryers are out, are going out. And I think we might have some help on that coming.
We'll meet with the mayor on the first one.
So we might be able to reduce that a little bit also, depending on the meeting we're having concerning utilities and more effective equipment. We're not using as much water, not using as much electricity, things of that nature. But as of right now, it would be about $80,000 if we did none of that, for me to get the washer and dryer stuff needed, okay? And I will remind you that the jail has a healthy revenue stream. So, I mean, that's about $4.9 million that we bring in to the general fund. So, I'm not giving you nothing, I'm giving you a little for you to give me a lot. How's that?
Does that make sense?
There we go. But we do provide revenue, the jail does.
Questions?
I value your judgment. What I want to know is there anything inflated on this in your mind? Is there anything you can do without it in this? Or, these sound like needs to me,
Well, I'll assure you, and I think you've seen by our past, that anywhere that we can see through the year where we can cut expenditures, we do that, and then we turn money back at the end of the year if we see that there's some better way we can do something. And that's something that we're exploring constantly. To answer your question directly, no, sir, I don't see any, there's no fat in our budget. These are needs, these are not wants. And one of the problems we've got on equipment, such as the dryers and the whatnot, is we've got a deteriorating equipment that is now at the point where it's giving out on us. So we unfortunately come to that point where we're having to replace.
To put it in perspective, we're serving 22,000 meals a week.
A week is what we're serving.
Okay,
Yeah, they-
with 2 tilt skillets, 3 double ovens, and 2 food steamers.
well, the other thing I was looking at too is the overtime, 100,000. I understand what you said a while ago, but when you were originally voted in by the commission, I think we had, 13 openings?
We had 17 openings in detention. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I had 8 openings in
My question is, how many do you have now? Do you
I
have
think
any
I've got
openings?
one that quit on us the other day. We've got one
Detention.
in detention right now. We've reduced that from 17 to 1.
Well, I was wondering if there were any, part of that overtime was due to not having personnel.
It was at the first of the budget year,
Yeah, the
yes,
first
sir.
of the budget
It
year,
was.
yes,
They
it
were
was.
running double shifts.
We're running double shifts. We've even, on second shift, we've changed it to a 10-hour shift so we could have an overlap. The overtime problems that we get into, of course, obviously, is when we lose people. We get into that. The other part of that is detention. Personnel and cross trainers are doing transports, and they're out-of-town transports. So they're not I'd love to have them on a 40-hour, but they're out of town, so, and we're going to Memphis and things like that. So I've got to compensate those people.
And hospital.
In hospital duty, where if we have an inmate that goes out and is confined to the hospital, we have to have a person there with them. And so that involves overtime. And there's no way around that.
That request for mental health and stuff, transport, that got deferred off into some kind of study committee?
No, sir. Where we are right now is, it is coming open, came up, what is today? Tuesday?
Yes.
It's coming up tomorrow.
Yeah.
For a vote?
For a vote. And what that would mean is the top 5 counties in the state that are in mental health transport, and unfortunately, we are in that top 5 for now. In 2020, it will allow us that we will not be the primary transport for mental health patients.
Straight off on the mayor?
It's going, no, sir.
No,
It'll
sir.
be put off on the mental health or the facility. They're going to have to come up with another way of doing this.
Centerstone,
Centerstone or something like that.
They found some interesting concepts for
Yeah.
budgeting.
Now,
So
we're gonna come up with a
paying for
So what that means to us is,
State's gonna
budget-wise, last
regulate it.
year, we spent $159,000 on mental health transport. We transported 1,597
Not on the rest, they
transports
shouldn't
on
be
mental
out.
health. So that's going to have a tremendous impact on us.
I looked at that about 10 days ago, and it looked like it was just kind of staggering or something, but I guess it's moving.
Well,
It had
there's
4
been...
readings in the House and in the
Four
Senate.
readings, but there's been 3 amendments to the original bill that we went down. And there's been 3 amendments to that. Actually, it started out that come July 1, we would have been out of it, but then the amendments now have
Now
made it
pushed out till next
pushed
year.
out to next year. And of course, one of the things they had to do, the governor, of course, they obviously had to find funding to be able to do this, and so that was one of the holdups. But it's coming up for vote tomorrow, and we're feeling pretty confident that it's going to come out. So that's what we're looking at right now. So, then that's going to help us tremendously.
You know, one thing to remember years ago on that was before the statute or law changed on it, the ambulance used to take the nonviolent. And then we'd take the violent, and then the ambulance got opted out of it at some point.
If it gives you any indication of what we're doing, in the last 2 months, we've transported 2 8-year-olds because the doctor would not agree to let somebody else, the family, do it. They didn't want to accept the responsibility of the liability. So we've had one agency transport a 4-year-old. They had to borrow a seat to do it. We had one where they had given some type of not in our county, thank God, but they had given some type of medication and died in the back of the police car. So that's why we're saying we don't need to be doing
I
this.
need to be doing that, yeah.
Do I have somebody who wants to make a motion, or do I have somebody who wants to buy breakfast?
I'll buy breakfast.
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget forward on jail.
Second.
I have a second, Steve Irwin. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carries. Anything else needs to come before? Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, very quickly, let me, give me 5 minutes if you'll bear with me. As you know, that we've had several vacancies in our ambulance department and also at EMA. So I've worked it out with Sonia and Lisa that what I'm asking for, I want to reorganize our public safety as we know it, leaving out the sheriff's department. But this is my PowerPoint, okay? So if you can see that, my crude PowerPoint, I drew it out a few minutes ago. But what I want to do is to create a PSD, a public safety director. It's very similar to what Williamson County has. I think Sumner County recently went to that. So they have a public safety director, and then EMA would actually, Tennessee code says that you don't have to have a designated director, but you have to have someone over EMA. So we could have an assistant director under that umbrella of the EMA director, or I'm sorry, the public safety director would be over all 3 of these. So one would be fire and rescue, and the other one would be EMS. I need to go ahead and post, so Larry is in this one. I need to go ahead and post the EMS, since we don't have a director there. And then EMA, so basically there are 2 vacancies right now, so and they won't be refilled over an ambulance department. And then EMA won't be refilled. That's TK's old position. It won't be refilled either. We'll just have an assistant director. So that's 3 positions that are vacant that won't be refilled. And right now, there's enough money left in the budget from Mr. Nunley's to get us through the rest, but I would like to go ahead and get this thing posted as quickly as possible. And give it to Sonia and let her post it. We want somebody that's very well qualified. I don't have time as the county mayor, even with a deputy to the mayor. When I was president of Rutherford Volunteer Fire Department, that was from a physical standpoint. I don't have time to learn when does a turnout gear expire. Now, what is the expiration on air bottles for the fire department? All the technical stuff that goes in, the technical stuff like Joe knows on radios, I don't know that. We need a public safety director that oversees all three of these, that has the technical skills and the training that can make sure that they're all answering back to that one person that's responsible for our public safety. And of course, the sheriff, they'd work hand in hand with the sheriff because he's a constitutional officer, but this person right here would answer directly to the mayor's office, and then these two, Mr. Farley, he didn't like it at first, but I think he's okay with it now. He said, well, I'd rather just report to you. And I said, I don't know the technical stuff. I know about fire protection, I know about getting your ISO ratings, all that stuff, but I don't know the day-to-day ins and outs of that. I'm working on trash, and I'm working on transportation, working with the city. You know, there's a lot of things. My plate is still not full yet, but, you know, we're doing a pretty good job with it.
And there is the possibility by uniting this, the possibility of larger grants, I think, that
Yes,
you might apply.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have to have permission from the commission to reorganize?
I do not, but I just want to put it out there, float it out to you, because I will be bringing that to the budget committee and asking for that funding.
If you don't have to have permission for the county commission, I'd like to formally give you permission from this committee to do it, and I'll put that in form of a motion.
I have a motion. I have a second. I think what we'll do on this is just call a voice vote.
Roll call.
Roll call. Roll call, voice, whatever you want. It's getting late.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Thank you, members.
Before we leave, the sheriff, how many patrol deputies do we have right now?
97.
How many of those are
97 on patrol.
On patrol.
and not counting SROs?
No, sir. 68 SROs in there.
68 SROs. So we've got roughly 2/3 as many SROs as we do
Yes.
deputies.
And of course, that the SROs are growing, you know, as the schools grow, then that grows too.
We're continuing to build campuses.
Yes, sir.
Instead of single schools, and it makes a certain amount of sense to do that. Is there any way to reduce the numbers when we have a campus situation like that, than to staff it with kind of the way we're doing it with an individual school now? Is there any way to do that?
I don't see it, because we have tried, when we're short of SROs, where we split the duties of an SRO, where you go to this school, this school. The problem you get into is if there's an incident or something that happens at this school, you've got a school totally vacated.
Yeah.
And we just hadn't really found a good way to be able to split the duties like that.
Just asking.
Yes, sir.
Because we're going to continue to build schools at
Well,
an
yeah,
alarming rate.
and what we did last year, as a school was being approved, then we were trying to get ahead 6 months prior to the school opening to bring an SRO so we could get them trained.
I think your parents are pretty much expecting that.
Well, it's you know, I'll say this for our SRO department. I mean, they're extremely good at what they do. But, these men and women are extremely busy. I mean, they're constantly doing something with either students or in the classroom, dealing with parents that are upset over a particular situation. Unfortunately, we have incidents that are happening in the school with some of our youngsters that they're having to deal with. And so they are a busy group. They are. extremely busy.
Didn't doubt that, but it just looking forward.
I understand what you're saying.
It's not just confronting an immediate threat. It's being there day to day, getting familiar with the students, getting the confidence of the students, and gathering intelligence from those students who come to trust those men and women. And by doing that, they thwart a lot of potential confrontations and so on. And you can't do that if you're absent.
Well, you can, and one of the things that we've got, there's been several incidents, of course, I'm not, because it's involving juveniles, that in the last 2 weeks, had the SRO not had the relationship, we would not have been aware of what was going on. So that's the beauty of having somebody in the schools with them.
My only reason to ask that question is we're having campuses instead
Well, I
of other ones, and is there a way to have 3 instead of 4? It's just a...
We've been staying with 1 in the elementary, middle, and then 2 in the high school because of the mass of the high school. And that's kind of the formula we've been using.
That's the reason I said, can we have 3 instead of 4? But
I'd
understand.
Yeah, I'll take 3.
And altercation in high school, you want 2 officers.
All right, I'll call